Hey. All right. Hey, everybody. It's 1:03. We're going to call this workshop to order. Commissioners, thank you all for being here. Mr. Administrator, before we get started, I saw Supervisor of Elections early out here, and you had some points you wanted to speak about. I don't want to make you wait for hours. So if are you comfortable going now and kind of presenting to us what you want, or do you want to wait? It's totally up to you. Yes, sir. Mr. Supervisor.
Thank you very much, Chairman, and good to see you. I hope to see you maybe on our canvassing board.
Yes, sir. Looking forward to it, hopefully.
Always a pleasure. And maybe your esteemed county attorney. That would be great.
That's right. That's right.
So yeah, I've presented, I think everybody has a copy of our, the Florida Supervisors of Elections legislative priorities for the coming legislative session. Pretty straightforward. The first one, though, the state has changed the way they do driver's license numbers. And they've also started requiring driver's license numbers for many more transactions with our election offices, requesting vote by mail, signing petitions, things like that. Driver's license numbers are changing. They're not automatically they're supposed to be automatically updated with us, but it would make it better, I think, anytime there is a driver's license number change, that's essentially considered to be a change in their voter record also, and that would streamline the process of getting those driver's licenses updated over to our offices. We're getting a lot of calls. There's some churn out in the public about concerns that the driver's license number change will impact people's ability to vote. It shouldn't, but if we streamline that process, so really that's what the first bullet point is about there.
Mr. Supervisor, let me interrupt you for a second.
Sure.
Just so I'm sure. Mr. Administrator, are we the vessel for the supervisor's legislative requests is it the county commission? I mean, I just want to make sure. Are you just letting us know what you're asking?
Yeah, you're not. I would say we're doing our own lobbying on this.
Okay, got it.
Also, but just as far as any kind of coordination that might help, that would be good. Yes.
Well, I assume these guys out here are listening to all this stuff.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Thank you.
Let's see. One of the main ones we were hoping for, and any help we could get, would be to push for the exemptions of our poll workers and our elections workers, their public information. There's been, of course, the news about threats. One county had a public records request for the poll workers' names and numbers and all of that, and they gave it out, and then they started getting phone calls at the polls with misinformation saying, hey, you're supposed to shut down early and things like that. So we don't need that information being out there. And also just it enables targeting, and we're critical infrastructure, and so our poll workers and our election workers have all kinds of passwords and things like that. We don't want to put them in a bind. So that's the key main points I wanted to go over. And I'm always here if you all need any assistance and information about any of these. It would be great to have some partnerships on this.
Awesome. Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. And obviously, as committee weeks roll out and session starts happening in the new year, we'll have a new chairman, and just keep us apprised of any issues that you would like us to pass along to our lobbying team or the county administrator. Obviously, we're here to help you in any way we can.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Thank you for being here. All right, Mr. Administrator, you want to kick us off?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Commissioners, this, as you all know, is your workshop on state and federal legislative priorities for 2026. We have our state and federal teams represented here at the table, and I'm going to go ahead and hand it off to Nikki Hatch to kick us off, make some introductions, and get us rolling. Nikki.
All right, thank you, Vince. Good afternoon, Commissioners. It's a pleasure to present today's workshop. As Vince mentioned, around the table, we have Ken Morris and our state and federal lobbying team from the Southern Group, with Brian Batista supporting the county state priorities across the street, as well as Sean Pittman and Sam, and Chase Kroll representing the county up in D.C. You'll hear from each of them here shortly. But first, I'm going to provide a quick overview of what we'll be covering today. We'll begin with our proposed state and federal policy priorities for the upcoming year, including an update from Ken on the property tax reform measures to be considered by the Florida Legislature this session. We'll continue with our proposed appropriation request to seek line item funding in coordination with our state and federal delegation members. We'll also hear from Brian and Chase and Sean to provide some more context on the 2026 state legislative session, the second session of the 119th Congress, as well as a timely update on the federal government shutdown. I'll plan to just hit the highlights today, but all the issues covered are discussed in much greater detail in your workshop materials, and we'll have the opportunity to address any of the questions you may have along the way. To start us off, though, I'd like to hand it over to Ken to provide an update on the property tax reform proposals, which is going to be a significant issue of interest during the upcoming legislative session.
Just test my mic. Okay. Good afternoon, Commissioners. I have the unenviable task of providing the property tax reform update. I apologize in advance. Of course, this is going to be the predominant issue for local governments this year, as you know. This is going to be a shared priority of the governor and legislative leaders. They've just yet to agree on how to get there. Last spring, during the end of session report and presentation and throughout the development of your budget for the current year, we talked about the creation of the House Select Committee on Property Taxes and how often they would be convenient. They ended up meeting a lot less than we anticipated over the summer. They had about 2 meetings in May, a couple meetings last month, but we know that they're going to be a part of any legislation that comes through the House. Again, that's a 37-member committee of the House, so they're going to be looking at anything that gets either placed on the ballot for 2026 or any statutory changes related to your authority and your home rule authority to levy ad valorem taxes. About 2 weeks ago, the House Speaker released a memorandum outlining some of his thoughts on property tax reform, and that included the release of 7 proposed constitutional amendments. And using his language here, they were divided, can you go back? They were divided into 3 groups: categorical eliminations, additional exemptions, and reforms. And so this memo outlining his thoughts talked about trusting voters and allowing the people of Florida to choose some, all, or maybe none of the proposals at the ballot. So we didn't get any real clarification as to what the Speaker's priority would be in terms of property tax reform. And so because of that, we're really doing the deep dive, analyzing all of the proposals in the House. There was some commonality among the 7 proposals. Like we've seen before, all of these proposals would not impact school taxes. Again, we've seen that year after year, proposal after proposal, the 17 constitutional amendments that have been on the ballot in the last 20 years. If not all, most, just about all, have not impacted school taxes. The other language we're seeing, it's identical language in each of the House proposals, is a prohibition to impact law enforcement budgets. So let's say, for example, 1, 2, or 3 of these amendments were to pass in 2026. This would impact local government's 2028 budget. Whatever that reduction in your tax base is, you wouldn't be allowed to reduce the funding level to law enforcement. Now, that brings a lot of questions. What is law enforcement? We all have a pretty clear idea what it is, but it's not defined in the legislation. And I think you're going to see a lot of work to that effort through the League of Cities and the Association of Counties in better defining that. In our county, Leon, like most counties, for example, we contract with the Sheriff's Office to operate the jail. Is that considered law enforcement, or is that corrections? I think you'll also see efforts, in addition to trying to broaden or better define the term, broadening it to maybe include public safety. What about other first responders? Should EMS be included in this hold harmless provision? But again, I pointed out because it's in all 7 of the proposals, so it's clearly part of where the House sees this going, no matter what proposal they end up agreeing to and putting on the ballot in 26. Commissioners, this slide just highlights a few of the House proposals and their potential impacts to the county. Since this memo came out and the proposals were filed about 2 weeks ago, we've been working with the property appraiser's office to begin to identify the potential fiscal impacts. So the first you see is an immediate elimination of homestead property taxes. Again, all of these proposals doesn't apply to schools. This would be an $85 million impact to the county, which is 40% of your ad valorem collection. Another proposal will be a phased elimination over 10 years. So year one would be a $100,000 exemption, year two would be another 100, year three. So the greatest impact in terms of budgeting would be the first 3 years of that. So first year, 40 million, another 23 million the following year, 11 in the third year. But it gets you to the same place. Ultimately, it's an elimination of homestead property taxes. Third one we have up here under categorical eliminations is the elimination of homestead property taxes for seniors with legal title of their home. And you see the less than sign. I want to be clear that this 20 million is a high-end estimate because we don't have all the title information. We know who seniors are. We know who's over 65 generally. So this is a very rough impact, a high-end number. But if you are a senior 65 and up, you own your home outright, you would be exempt from property taxes. This is different than the local option exemptions that are currently in place, which are income-based. The Board of County Commissioners has the option to approve that exemption. And there's other limitations about the value of the home. It's not unlimited. It's a modest price of the home. And again, income-based. One of the additional exemptions, Commissioners, is a 25% exemption on homestead property taxes. So this would be after the current $50,000 exemption, whatever's remaining, 25% of which would be exempt. Again, that looks like a $20 million impact to the county in FY28 if this were approved. Commissioners, I know this is a lot. There's still more proposals out there. I just wanted to highlight a few of them. Again, we know that this is going to be the predominant issue of session, but it's not the only policy issue. There's a lot of other work to be done this upcoming year, and Nikki's going to take you through some of the important policy issues that we have.
All right, so in addition to opposing property tax reform that will significantly impact our ability to operate, we also have additional proposed state policy priorities proposed for the next session. Commissioners, most of these issues on the screen you will recall from past years, so I'm just going to touch on these at a very high level. Recognizing that our policy priorities are generally incremental in nature, you can see our proposed list includes a number of long-standing priorities, such as advocating for the protection of the state workforce, as well as for the restoration of passenger rail service in North Florida, which is also recommended on our federal list, which we'll see in a moment. But at the state level, some of our priorities seek specific legislative action, such as providing additional flexibility for counties and utilizing state housing dollars for local affordable housing needs in their community. And as we do each year, we've included support of the Florida Association of Counties legislative platform for 2026, which includes issues of all interest for counties, such as preemption of home rule authority and unfunded mandates or other cost shifts to counties. Up next, I'll just briefly go over our federal policy priorities, which you'll also recall from past years, such as our support for passenger rail restoration, as well as the decriminalization and descheduling of marijuana from the Controlled Substances Act, and support of the city's completion of a foreign trade zone at the Tallahassee International Airport. We've also included support of NACO's legislative platform for the upcoming year. Up next, I'll provide a brief update on the various state and federal funding opportunities we'll be pursuing over the next year. As detailed in your workshop materials, the county leverages funding throughout the year through executive agency appropriations and grant programs administered at both the state and federal level. It's important to note, Commissioners, that the county leverages most of its funding through these agency appropriations, which includes funding for things like FDOT's annual work program and grant programs administered through FDEP for water quality projects. With this in mind, the workshop materials includes an extensive list of county and blueprint projects, beginning on page 6 of your materials, that we will continue to pursue opportunities through state and federal agencies as they become available throughout the year. Those projects are those that are identified in the county or Blueprint's 5-year capital improvement plan, align with existing state or federal grant programs anticipated to be available in the upcoming year, and those that have a funding gap that are in excess of the maximum request amounts recommended for the legislative line item appropriations, which I'll detail here in just a moment. And as we do each year, Commissioners, we've provided a list of county projects proposed for this year's state legislative line item funding request. Prior to the start of session, the county submits project requests to our local delegation to sponsor for line item funding in the state budget. The state appropriations process is highly saturated as legislators receive many funding requests from their districts, which can include requests from numerous local governments, nonprofits, and private entities. Recognizing this, to best position the county to secure this competitive state funding, we utilize the guidance of our lobbying team to identify projects that have a competitive local match, are shovel-ready, and align with the anticipated priorities of the legislature for the upcoming session, or those that have been specifically requested by a delegation member. Additional details on each of these projects is available in your workshop materials. In addition, we've also provided a project list for federal community project funding request, or federal line item appropriations, commonly referred to as earmarks. However, unlike state line item appropriations, these federal requests are limited to specific appropriation subcommittees, and congressional members are also limited to the submission of 15 projects total for consideration. With this in mind, we've worked with our lobbyists to identify a narrowed list of county projects that align with an eligible appropriation subcommittee and its specific requirements for this year's federal earmark request as reflected on the screen. Additional details on each of these projects is also available in your workshop materials. So to round us out, I just want to provide a quick look ahead to some important dates coming up. Both the state legislative session and the next session of Congress will begin in early January, with Facts Legislative Day taking place on January 21st. So with that, Commissioners, I'll hand it over to Brian to provide an update on the upcoming state legislative session and how the legislative priorities we've identified here today will take shape in the year ahead. And then I'll hand it over to Chase to provide an update on the federal government shutdown and what to expect during the upcoming session of Congress.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Commission, and thank you for the opportunity here to present to you today. This is an overview of our firm. This is the Southern Group's Tallahassee office. In front of you see a lot of highly doctored headshots. And just as a way of overview, this is the Florida cabinet. A lot of new faces on here. Obviously, you know, Governor DeSantis is going into the last year of his second term. Lieutenant Governor Jay Collins was appointed a few months ago to replace Lieutenant Governor Jeanette Nunez, who's moved on to be the president of FIU. Attorney General James Uthmeyer and Chief Financial Officer Blaise Ingoglia both started this year, both appointed by Governor DeSantis. And then finally, Agriculture Commissioner Wilton Simpson, who is rounding out his first term. Here you can see the presiding officers for this upcoming 2026 legislative session, Representative Daniel Perez and Senator President Ben Albritton. But you can also see here the line of succession of leadership throughout the Florida legislature. And there's a little chart kind of showing, you know, where the different leaders are geographically located. This is Leon County's delegation. We're extremely fortunate here to have a very engaged and impactful delegation, starting with Senator Corey Simon, also Representatives Gallup Franklin, Jason Schoaf, and Allison Tant. These are just a few issues that I want to draw your attention to. They're issues that we believe the county will be interested in tracking and will be impactful this session. Land use and development issues are always sure to come up. We anticipate that there'll be some revisions to SB 180. The Florida Agency for Fiscal Oversight at the Department of Financial Services. We know that CFO Ingoglia has stated it is his goal to audit every county and city in the state. And so, our expectation should be at some point they will likely, come and seek an audit here. Sovereign immunity cap increases, there's already been bills filed on that, and we anticipate that's an issue that will get some air this year. Property tax reform, we don't need to get much further into that. That is absolutely something that you should expect the legislature and the governor's office to spend a lot of time on, including, I would imagine, potentially a special session. County commission term limits, there was a joint resolution last year that passed through the House and received one hearing in the Senate. That'll be back again this year, and I would anticipate that gets some movement as well. And then finally, the fiscal budget for this year. Last year was a year where they restricted and brought the budget down some. What we're hearing is they want to do even more this year. So despite the fact that last year was a cut budget year, the expectation is that the House, Senate, and governor's office will be proposing smaller budgets this year as well. Here's a legislative timeline, just to see there are 6 committee weeks before legislative session begins about halfway through January. We're through 2 of the 6 weeks. Those 2 weeks are, largely about, delegation and selecting the next leadership. So not a lot of legislative work has happened yet, but I would expect the committee weeks in November and December to really, begin the work. Then obviously, legislative session will kick off in January through the middle of March. And again, you can see down there, we would say pay attention and expect there will potentially be some special sessions this year on redistricting and potentially property tax reform as well. It says questions, but I'm going to hand it over to Sean to give a presentation first.
Thank you, and thank you all for the opportunity to be here. And well, first let me introduce our team. Sam Peltier, who is our Director of Governmental Relations. I'm stalling to figure out which button I push here. This one. Okay, all right. Sam Peltier, our Director of Governmental Affairs, and also, y'all haven't met Casey Denny, but we brought Casey on a couple months ago. Really excited about Casey. She comes from being a Nikki in Palm Beach County, so she has quite a lot of county legislative experience. So you'll see her running around the Capitol quite a bit and leaning into our issues as well. So that's our team. I want to just focus in on a couple things. Brian talked about some issues that have come up before, and every year we sort of say, well, it only got talked about on one side, or it was a bill that didn't go anywhere. I think what I want to illuminate, particularly with the fiscal forecast here, is this stuff keeps coming back because it's real, right? That there are real interests and they grow every single year. So I think when you look at county commission term limitations, when you see where property taxes is, that just started as a couple years ago as just a conversation. Then the governor slammed it down and the House leadership picked it up. But you see it now in forms of real legislation and proposals now. So as we go forth, we really want to take these things seriously, and the idea of having your input early would be very, very helpful. You only have to go across the street. We'd like for you to talk to us about it before you do, but the opportunity for you to weigh in. We know you'll work closely with FAC. They obviously know how serious this stuff is, but it needs everybody to show up and to give real life scenarios. They're your constituents. You know what they're actually going through and how these things impact their lives. You got to bring that to the table. We can do our job, but they know that you hired us to come there and talk to them about these issues. But when they talk to people like you who have constituencies also, it makes it real. So I just want to illuminate that, that as we come back every year and we say there's a threat of this or a threat of that, you see the stuff getting closer to your desk. And then lastly, the long-range fiscal outlook is obviously very real. The Speaker of the House, when he came in last year, he illuminated these facts. He mentioned these numbers, and now we're heading towards the negative aspect. So as we go over there to fight for these great projects that you have, it's very important that our delegation, that when you see our delegation at events, that you put some of these to memory and you put real life perspectives onto these issues, because, you know, these things will happen, but there's still going to be budget proposals. There's still going to be items awarded. We just want to be up on the priority list. So we need you to understand that and to take advantage of the fact when you run into legislators, put some of this to memory so that you can talk about them when it's not expected that you're talking about it. Okay? And we talked about I think Brian talked a little bit about the dates that are coming up that you need to be aware of. And thank you for giving us the opportunity to work with you.
Great. Chairman Welch, Commissioners, Mr. Long and Ms. Osteen, it's good to be with you today. I'm happy to be down here in the Capital County to talk a little bit about what in the world is happening in Washington these days. But before I get into that, let me tell you a little bit about me and our DC office. I'm Chase Kroll, and I am one of the founding partners of the Southern Group's federal lobbying practice up in Washington, DC. And I think you guys are astute, sagacious to align your state and federal lobbying efforts. I've been doing lobbying work for 13 years in Washington. Before that, I was a Hill staffer and I ran congressional campaigns. And for many of those years as a lobbyist, I represented municipalities from California, Ohio, Texas, Florida, Minnesota. And it was always kind of a struggle as a purely federal shop to always align with the state lobbying efforts as well. So I'm excited that we're all doing this together. I think it's great. Makes a lot of sense. Our team in DC, we have 12 lobbyists up there. What we have done for clients, we've delivered a lot of wins, and part of that is the recipe of combining these decades-long relationships with very senior administration people that happen to be from Florida. It helps being a Florida-based firm in that regard, along with folks like me who've been running around the Congress for more than a decade, and a handful of folks that I know that I brought onto the team to help cover every corner of the Congress. We're a bipartisan firm. Right now, Republicans control House, Senate, and the White House, and so we lean on a lot of our Republican contacts. But we also have Democrats at the firm, and we can go talk to Congressional Black Caucus, Senate Progressive Caucus. I tell clients, and I'll tell you, we can get a meeting with any member in the House or the Senate as long as you give me about 1 week heads up and a good enough excuse. We've got the access. We've been around for a long time. When I sort of stood up the DC office, I had a list of recruits in mind that I thought would add a lot of value immediately as we're getting going. So we've hired folks that have been in the Senate for a long time, been in the House for a long time, folks who were in the first Trump administration, folks who were in administrations before that. And then we've got a stable of younger folks too who have this incredible network of staffers in the Congress and in the administration. Let me touch briefly on a couple of the issues that were highlighted in your priorities. So as far as the sort of the rail, the highway, the infrastructure, obviously that's bread and butter of representing municipalities in Washington. Every city, every county, every joint power authority, every water district, y'all want money. And that's our job to help deliver that every appropriation cycle. I've been through a lot of them. We've delivered a lot of wins on appropriations. It's harder than it used to be. In sort of the glory days of earmarking back in the 90s and the early 2000s. But now there's a process in place, and we go through the process, and I'm highly confident that we can deliver on those in fiscal 27. Steve Womack, who chairs the THUD, the Transportation, Housing, Urban Development Subcommittee in House Appropriations, he's a good friend of our office and our team up in Washington. I would note on appropriations, Danny Diaz-Balart is on our team, and for reasons that may be obvious, he has extraordinarily good relationships in the House Appropriations Committee. we happen to have a member of the Florida delegation who is the dean of the Florida delegation, the longest serving member in the Congress, Mr. Diaz-Balart, and he's also the vice chair of the House Appropriations Committee. Being the vice chair in and of itself doesn't mean a whole lot, but it means you have the imprimatur of the full chair, Mr. Tom Cole, Republican from Oklahoma. And so having the connections to Mr. Diaz-Balart is extremely helpful for clients and municipal clients maybe in particular. The marijuana issue is extremely interesting. We've actually done work, I've done work on that issue personally. I think we're probably aligned on where you want to go with that as far as a policy. And I would say one of our best allies in Congress on those efforts is going to be Senator Rand Paul from Kentucky. One of our hires at our DC office is a gentleman named Brian Darling, who was Mr. Paul's general counsel. He's a lawyer and a policy advisor, and he was also Mr. Paul's senior policy advisor in his Senate office. So we can definitely move the needle on that issue, and I would suggest we do it through Mr. Paul's office. I've traveled all over Europe with Senator Paul. We know his office extremely well. The free trade zone issue, that's also interesting. One of our clients is one of the larger special economic zones in the Western Hemisphere. It's called Honduras Prospera, and it's this special economic zone mostly on the island of Roatán. But through that client work, we've gotten to be familiar with kind of the free trade zone issues that matter to this administration, et cetera. So we can deliver on that one as well. Let me zoom out and talk about maybe the shutdown. It's day 28 of the shutdown. I'm sure you folks, you don't probably need me to recap kind of the news headlines, who stands where. But I will tell you from my estimation, and having talked to senior staff and to members of the Congress, it's not going to end probably until mid-November. It might go up to Thanksgiving. The thing that needs to happen is they will come back and they'll pass another continuing resolution. The current House-passed CR goes until November 21st. So if they decide to come back and solve the ACA premium tax credits issues, the PTCs that are about to expire at the end of the calendar year, say they come back and decide we're going to make a deal on that in mid-November and they come back November 15th, that only gives them 6 days of current funding if they do the PTC deal and agree to the House-passed CR. So number one, they're going to come back, they got to do another CR. Frankly, there are some conservatives in the House Freedom Caucus, that want to do a CR all the way through calendar 26, because they don't want to have to go through the appropriations and fight all over all that again. They want to get to more, frankly, contentious policy issues. But I think where we'll land is they'll come back, they'll pass another CR to get us into mid to late December, which will then give the appropriators enough time to pass a series of minibuses, these combination of appropriations bills. They have one minibus that's basically done. I was talking actually yesterday in the House and the Senate with appropriators with a client of mine, and they were saying the one minibus is basically done, and as soon as we come back, we're going to pass that minibus, and then we're going to pass defense approps, and then we'll get on other minibuses. So what does this mean for you? It means the remainder of the calendar year is going to be a mess, but I think they're going to get it all figured out before the end of the year. We're going to get a deal on the Obamacare subsidies. We've got clients that are highly interested in that outcome. And then they're going to pass appropriations to get us through the rest of fiscal 26, which means come January, the second session of the 119th, hopefully appropriations will be done and dusted for the remainder of fiscal 26, and then we can get to work on fiscal 27, which means y'all need to come to town or send a delegation. We'll run around the hill. We'll get you priorities in front of the appropriation subcommittees that matter, get them through the full committees, get them blessed by leadership, and we'll be off to the races. Thanks.
All right. Brian, you going back at it? Chase, thank you. Thanks for being here.
Pleasure.
Are we back to me, Mr. Administrator? Are you guys good?
So with that,
Yeah, go
we are recommending the board's approval of the proposed 2026 state and federal legislative priorities. We also seek any additional direction from the board on these priorities presented today. And most importantly, we're happy to answer any questions you may have.
Perfect. All right. Thank you, Mr. Administrator. Thank you, guys. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of questions. Commissioners, how do we want to take this up? We're going to need a motion. I know Commissioner O'Keefe has an individual issue which lends itself to bifurcating these state legislative priorities and federal priorities. Are y'all cool with that if we go through them each one? I think there are 8 state and 5 federal or something like that. Does that sound 5-6 federal?
Mr. Chair, since it's a workshop, can we ask questions before we do a motion?
I mean, I think our policy would be to have a motion first, but since we're going to bifurcate them, at some point, we're going to have to sort of take them up individually. So why don't we do a round of, if we can commit to keeping it brief, you can have a round of questioning of our panel, and then if we do one round of that with everybody, because I certainly have some questions, then we can come back to individual issues. Does that sound good?
Point of order.
Sure.
Mr. Chair. In the past in workshops, I think we've made a motion to waive the rules so we could speak freely and not have to have a motion on the floor.
Okay.
Is that, if it's okay with,
I'm cool with that, obviously. I think that's fine. We don't have to make a motion right now. Yeah.
Madam Attorney, do we need a motion to waive the rules to speak freely?
It would be a waiver of your board policy that would require a motion in advance of discussion. So yes, that would be appropriate at this time.
Okay, so go ahead and make a motion.
Mr. Chair, so moved.
Second.
All right, we've got a motion and a second to waive board policy, so we don't have to have a motion just yet. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Passes unanimously with Commissioner Maddox out of chambers. All right, we want to start, anybody want to start their round robin here? Let's try to do one round of questioning with our panel, and then we'll get back to the issues at hand. It is 1:38, and let's be conscious of everybody's time.
Mr. Chairman, I don't mind volunteering to go first.
You will not?
No, I will go.
Okay, yes, sir. Go for it, Commissioner Proctor.
Thank you so much, team, for being here today. My first question deals with NACO's policy priorities, which features public land. And this payment in lieu of federal properties that we have in our community, which is about 20% federal properties in Leon County. And then there's the third bullet on page 30 that indicates that legislation to ensure federal land management agencies reduce excess wildfire fuels on national forest system, blah, blah, blah. We want that federal land. This administration has been trying to indicate to local governments their willingness and desire to turn over federal lands. Here's another bullet indicator that using the argument to reduce excess, wildfire. I don't even know what an appropriate amount of wildfire. They're not trying to reduce the appropriate amount, but the excess wildfire. And I believe if the federal government turned over and followed through on the president's announcement, and I'm asking for our national lobbying to help us to understand better what we can do to come into these indicators the federal government wants to let go. And with this payment in lieu of, how do we get paid and it recognizes that these are not taxable, but it talks about the payment in lieu of for taxes program to compensate counties for untaxable federal land. That's number one on my mind. Y'all got any approaches to that? Thoughts for us? What can we anticipate and how do we pursue this?
The PILT issue, one of my clients was San Bernardino County out in California, and they had a big PILT, a bunch of PILT
Excuse
land.
me, sir. You could push that little thingy, the white thingy, and when your green light comes on.
Oh, yeah, this appeared to be green under there.
No, it's not. The green light will come on.
Yes.
Yeah, so I was going to say, oh, that's better.
See, here's his own. See the green light?
Yeah, there appears to be a green light under the little, there we go. See?
Okay, good.
There you go.
Know a thing or two.
There's a
I've
false
seen a thing or
negative.
two. Yeah.
PILT's a big deal, and you got to negotiate it regularly. I had some big counties out in California. They had a bunch of PILT land, and they were always trying to negotiate with the federal government on the terms. So we should actively engage on that. As far as so this came up during the reconciliation bill too, because there are some folks in Utah who wanted to be able to take over the public federal land and use it for development or energy exploration. So it depends on sort of end use. I don't know what the county envisions the federal or the federally managed public lands would be used for eventually, but that's going to matter to this administration. So that needs to be contemplated before you talk to the Trump administration about what you want to do with the federal lands.
Well, the Secretary of Interior and the Secretary of HUD made a joint announcement last year indicating this administration's interest in divulging the portfolio of federal lands, which is exceeding something like 500 billion acres. And we got some of it here, and we need it, and they wanted to divulge it if it was committed to affordable housing. And we got a whole lot of area in the south end of this county, and I want some. And I think the future, they're the biggest landholder that we have, and we want some. And I mean, you may not have a game plan, but I think what the chair wanted us to do is indicate the flavor of interest, which we may have legislatively, and that's one. And I've got 5 things, Mr. Chairman, but I want to relinquish and just to cite it is an interest. And it was good to see that NACO, we're looking at NACO stuff, and I find it compelling. Okay.
Mr. Proctor.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chair, if I can ask, and just in kicking off your interest, it would help to know what has been done to date. Has there been any paper trail yet, letter from your office to done to the White House? Do we know if there's any of that? Because I don't do federal, but it just seems to me that it would be helpful for at least a paper trail that we could have it in our hands, or I would say that's probably the first thing we ought to do is properly document the interests of the body and bringing the issue to the right desk.
Okay, well, I think the last communication I did about Dunn was that I didn't recognize him as my congressman from my district, which leads secondly to, in case it doesn't come back around, redistricting. It's coming up. I didn't see it in your notes offered to us, but it's out of cycle as well, you know. We need the congressional District 5, which was the Al Lawson seat. I want that back. And it was, in my mind, illegally attained, this District 2 seat. And Dunn does not represent the people of District 1. I could go down the list and tell you why you don't represent us. We need somebody that's going to represent. We don't have a Democrat in Tallahassee. We need that. So anybody get the lip lapping and violating Article 1 with respect to a census being taken first, if we ain't gonna do that, then this is a free-for-all. It's just bring whatever you can by any means necessary. We need Congressional District 5, and as I look at the screen, you indicate to us the continuing interest for term limits. Term limit me because I want to go to Congress anyway, but I can't get there through no stank District 2, recreate District 5. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, Commissioner Proctor, Commissioner Minor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First of all, let me just say thank you to each of you for being here. It means a lot to have you participate in the workshop. This is really our time for us to talk with each other and with you about our priorities for the coming year. So thank you very much for taking the time. I know how busy you are. First question I had is about appropriations, both at the state and federal level. And we don't need to go through every single line item here, but if each of you, for the state and Fed perspectives, kind of share your thoughts about what our measure of success might be going into this next year, without betraying your strategy that you might need in order to actually talk with some of the members. Kind of give us a sense for what you think, what types of appropriations we have here in the document that might be most likely to receive some funding, and what kind of thing we might be able to do with the county here to help you in that respect.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you for the question, Commissioner Minor. I'll go first if that's okay with everyone. The appropriation process at the state level is about finding a champion who's got the interest in pushing a project and then the capability to kind of get it over the finish line. If you look at sort of the hierarchy in the Florida legislature, start at the top, the presiding officers. They control in the budget like literally billions of dollars of discretionary funding within the budget. Underneath them, you've got the appropriations chairs, likely, hundreds of millions or billions of dollars, they would allocate. Below that level, the individual budget chairs, they get anywhere from, 15 million to maybe 50 million in a year discretionary that they get to directly allocate. And then you get down to the individual member level, and the individual members, depending on if they're in the majority or the minority party, will, and based on their seniority, will be able to deliver, one to a handful of projects. And it's really, really hierarchical like that. So what is important is that we align the projects that we're seeking with our delegation members so that they feel passionate about them and are willing to rank them highly. And then to make sure that we turn into advocates, individuals in the legislature who have kind of those larger discretionary buckets of money, and also to make sure that our projects are we're positioning our projects. We're kind of skating to where the puck is going, I guess I could say. Positioning our projects in buckets that we anticipate there will be significant funding in. So every year there's a water project list that comes out at the end. It's important that the county always has, in my opinion, I would advocate that we always have a few water projects that we're advocating for, because we know that there'll be a bucket of money there to try and get capital projects, road projects, especially given the fact that one of our delegation members, Representative Jason Schoaf, is the chair of the Transportation Committee. I mean, we should be looking where there is overlap between this body's priorities and his priorities, because as I said, when you think about that hierarchy, he is sitting at a level there where he will have several millions of dollars within his full discretion, and then the rest of the delegation as well. Really well thought of, extremely hardworking, and so making sure that Reps Franklin and Rep Tant are really bought in on the projects. If they come in and really rank these highly, they will get several wins as well, and so we want to position our stuff to be important to them. And of course, obviously, Senator Simon as well. He's got an extremely large area that he has to look after, which is his challenge. But he has a lot of voters here, and I do know that he cares about these constituents, and is always willing to try to help. So, that's what I would say. The most important thing is that we are, making sure that we are building advocates with our delegation and making sure that our projects rank highly with them, and that's how we'll find success.
That sounds good. In prior years, there have been like different trends where, I think 3 or 4 years ago, water projects were seen from an appropriations perspective as being the hot topic or category, right? Do you see, coming into the next legislative session at the state level, do you see an area like that taking somewhat of a precedence over others, or is it mainly come down to the membership relations and finding those champions along the hierarchy?
It's difficult to project in any year where there's going to be kind of excess funds. That's why we advocate to our local government clients to have a spread of projects across the different areas, so we can be advantageous when we find areas where there may be opportunity. Again, the sort of the prevailing wind for this session is going to be sort of down budget year, right? And so it's going to take kind of everything to make sure that we come out with a win. But again, given the membership and the delegation that we're blessed with here, I feel confident that we will be able to.
Yeah, and if I can add to what Brian's saying, I mean, he's so on point with just trying to have alignment, right, through our issues with the priorities of folks that are making decisions. Also trying to find some of our appropriations that align with substantive pieces of legislation or conversation. I mean, with some of our appropriations that are in rural areas, we ought to be sitting in front of Corey Simon saying the rural renaissance, it's gonna be a big thing in the Senate this year, and we ought to find where we have projects that are in those areas will support that substantive legislation. I'm just using this as an example. That's part of what he's talking about as well. So there's alignment in several different ways in order to build your strategy.
Got it. Sounds good. Chase, what are your thoughts on the federal side?
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner. On the federal side, appropriations process, I often think it's about the process and the people, because so much of it, you've got to be sort of on time and on target. There's deadlines for all these things, and they're not out yet for fiscal 27. We have a whole policy and research team led by this whip-smart young guy named Benjamin, and he's tracking all these deadlines. So we'll send you this great table where you know when and where to submit all your appropriations requests for the different subcommittees. It's great. None of that's out yet for fiscal 27. But just knowing the process is a big part of it. And then obviously the people, and that's where our relationships, with the Florida delegation, with the appropriators, can really bear fruit. I would say part of that process too is the more you can get buy-in across the community for a particular project, right? So it's not just the county submitting it, but you got letters of support from the community college, the VOTEC school, even the ecumenical leaders, the tribes, et cetera. The more you can backfill those requests with sort of community support, the better. And then part of it is sort of later in the game, in the spring, into the summer, it's about having us go talk to leadership. We're very good there. I will say, it's kind of a tacky thing, but I was just texting this morning with Speaker Johnson's senior policy advisor. He runs all of domestic policy for the speaker. He wants to go golfing with me. So we have that sort of friendly relationship with the speaker's office. Last week on Monday, I was in with Whip Emmer's office. He does a monthly multi-client Mondays where they bring in, last Monday it was like 10 of us lobbyists who are kind of friendly with that office. So we have really good access with House congressional leadership, and we understand the process and the people for appropriations. Last thing I would say, you gotta kind of tune your messaging to the folks that you're pitching. So, we've walked appropriations through Democrat and Republican administrations. It's different messaging. And my old boss used to say, I'm not an ought guy, I'm an is guy, and that's just the way it is. And so please bear that in mind when you're putting these requests in. You got to talk about it the right way. Look up the way Sean Duffy has talked about how he wants to prioritize infrastructure projects. It's about extending things out to where there's communities that over-index on marriages and childbirths. He calls those like the family communities, okay? That's just how he messages it. So just bear that in mind when you're putting in these requests too. That's just part of the sort of the political realities, I guess.
Great. All right. Thanks to all three of you for that. The other point I wanted to bring up was an issue that's been very popular with us in this board for several years is restoring passenger rail through North Florida. And I know that the state leadership may not be quite as supportive of this idea, but it's one of those issues where at the local level, local government, commissioners, mayors, school board members are very much in favor of this because they see the general public in their communities being strongly in favor of it. It's the type of thing where it benefits the economy, creating more cohesion within our transportation network, as well as providing increased evacuation capacity and disaster response. A whole host of benefits for that. Last year, we were able to get a letter to the Speaker, Senate President, and the Governor's office signed by 73 local elected officials from all over North Florida, but also going down to Central and South Florida, supporting the idea of restoring passenger rail from Pensacola to Jacksonville, then going on south to Central and South Florida. It's one of those issues where the public is very much in favor of it because they see the benefits of it. In addition to that letter signed by 73 local elected officials, we also had the Florida Association of Counties adopt that as a legislative priority last year. And the FACT president actually sent a letter to the governor's office, Speaker, and Senate President, urging them to consider joining the Southern Rail Commission as the next best solid step toward restoring passenger rail. You may be familiar with SRC. It's a group of 3 states, Mississippi, Alabama, and Louisiana, formed by Congress in 1982. Those 3 states have worked together to expand their passenger rail routing network among those 3 states. Just 2 months ago, those 3 states were able to get a twice daily route established from New Orleans to Mobile, Alabama, that runs twice a day now. It's called the Mardi Gras route. And so bringing down federal funding to make that happen, working with the local communities and those 3 states, they were able to get that route established. And it's very successful now. It's the capacity is, the ridership is very high. With that momentum happening just to the west of us,
Yeah.
at the local level, city commissioners, county commissioners, mayors, we believe that the time is ripe for us to start the ball rolling on this. There's a bill filed, HB 53, on the House side that has been filed again this year. I've been told that the Senate version is also forthcoming. I'd like to ask your help, Brian and Sean and Sam, at the state level to help us find co-sponsors, particularly Republicans co-sponsors from North Florida, but also elsewhere, that would join that bill, and then, of course, on the Senate side as well. I have no delusions of grandeur. I don't think we're going to get this passed this year, but I do see it as a multi-step effort to first have the state of Florida join the Southern Rail Commission. And by the way, when it joins the SRC, Florida's not committing to spending infrastructure dollars on rail. It's just joining that group, that SRC that commission, to have a multi-state coalition advocating for federal dollars to be drawn down, to which we can then start to reestablish passenger rail from Mobile to Pensacola, all the way to Jacksonville and then down. So we think it's, the time is ripe, the momentum is there for us to build upon, to start working in a multi-year effort to have that bill passed in the Florida legislature. Once we get that passed, the SRC, from what I've met with folks on the Southern Rail Commission, they have told me that once you get the bill passed in Florida, it should be relatively easy for the Southern Rail Commission to approve that step. At that point, it then goes to the 3 state legislators for them to basically approve that membership. But again, I've been told that those 3 legislatures want Florida to be part of the rail network for various reasons. So it really comes down to getting a bill passed in the House and Senate in Florida first, as part of that multi-year effort to start working with the other 3 states to establish passenger rail. So just wanted to put that out there. It's in our agenda item already, but I'd like to ask your help in finding Republican co-sponsors at the state level, and then help us get that bill passed. If not this year, perhaps the next or the next after that. So any comments or questions?
Do you know of any opposition, was the opposition, if there was any, was it related to?
I've spoken to a state senator a while ago about it, and his response was, well, you know, the Tallahassee and the Big Bend just don't have the population density to justify the expense. My reply to him was, it's not just about the population density in this area, it's about what it connects to. And so if we connect New Orleans, Jacksonville, Tampa to Tallahassee, that brings more cohesion to the transportation network here, and connects all these communities together for military bases, for going to football games without having to take your car, getting college students to go to the university without having to take a car onto the campus, and a whole host of reasons why it's a good idea.
But there's no fiscal related to the legislation.
The only thing related to the bill in terms of Southern Rail Commission membership is a membership fee. It's $70,000 a year to join, to be part of the Southern Rail Commission. Each of the states pays $70,000 a year, which is not a nominal amount, but it's relative to the rest of the Florida budget. I think it's a money well spent. And just so you know, the number escapes me, but the 3 states of the Southern Rail Commission currently working with that Mardi Gras route, we're able to draw down, I think it's $150 million from the federal government to establish that new route. So the $70,000 a year has a pretty high ROI over many years to have that investment brought down from the federal government.
Thank you.
So.
All right.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'll just add, don't disagree with anything you're saying about your take, and if the board's direction, we can absolutely work on trying to build support through the Florida Panhandle, and you're spot on with the current leadership. This might not be something that aligns with kind of their sort of vision for transportation. But if you think back, incentives were a huge thing in Florida for a time, and then and now they're not, right? And incentives are something that our state doesn't look at or focus on at all at the state level. And so I just say that to say, I think you're right to kind of keep it out there and keep beating the drum on it if this current, iteration of the legislature doesn't support it, doesn't mean that a future version won't see sort of the benefits of it, so.
Thanks to all of you for your time. Mr. Chairman, I apologize for the lengthy discussion here, but I appreciate it. Thank you, Mr.
Commissioners, please, we have 1 hour left. If each of us takes 20 minutes, we aren't going to make it at even close before we're even voting on the actual priorities. I would ask both the panelists and the commissioners to please be brief. If you can have these conversations privately and individually, just make an appointment. You don't have to air all that out right now. We are in a 2-hour workshop, and we are an hour into it. So just please keep that in mind. I mean, if we can keep it to 5 minutes in this little question and answer, and look, if you want to get that information, then come back with an idea to build a consensus and get the board to vote on it. That's a different conversation, but we got to be respectful of each other's time. Commissioner O'Keefe, you're up, followed by everybody else.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, everybody. First, I want to thank staff for putting in some specific flood mitigation projects here. That's been a big issue for our community, especially following the bicentennial storms. Straight to my questions. This is probably most for Brian. You talked about SB 180, which was a bill that part of it limited counties' abilities to strengthen or make more stringent growth management development rules. There's been lawsuits by one county and some cities, and you mentioned that there is some movement on dialing it back a little. It seems particularly right now with limiting it to hurricane-impacted counties. We, I believe, like home rule, and we like that our community decides what type of developments we have, and that may include more stringent. What is the outlook? Do you have in our packet the direction you need to defend that position, and what's the outlook look like for Leon County, either regaining or keeping our flexibility to reflect what our voters want here?
Yes, I believe we do. I think first off, thank you, Commissioner, for the question.
The chairman said you don't have to say thank you.
Well, it was an excellent question. Yes, I do believe, that we have sort of the authorization and direction from you guys. And then I'll also add, the Florida Association of Counties is highly focused on this as well. And they are, you guys know, an incredible organization that does a great job as well as, sort of channeling the needs that, stretch multiple counties, so.
And this will be it already is a huge priority on their radar.
Excellent. Thank you. This is for Chase. It's good to meet you.
Likewise.
Specific to the shutdown, we're seeing, like other communities, Head Starts was going to shut down, but various local government and other agencies have stepped in for temporary funding, in some ways with SNAP benefits. When CR eventually is done, is funding for those groups sort of backfilled, like pay for furloughed employees, so that local emergency funders kind of the agency clearly decides what goes back, but is there a backfill for these programs that are unfunded because of the shutdown?
Historically, yes. This time, it's unknown.
Okay.
Happy to go into further detail. That's just the way it is right now.
No, that's the exact.
And I was talking to Hill staff this morning. They're all freaking out because they're going to miss their paychecks this weekend too.
Yep, absolutely. And then, separate from the shutdown, we have seen, and I believe it's mostly from the executive government, less than appropriations, but the impact of canceling or not continuing funding for various health and human services, community programs. We've seen Meals on Wheels cut. We've seen crisis hotlines. We've seen other things. And local governments just do not have the resources to make up for that. What is the likelihood or ability to hope to get some of those non-woke programs funded again that are just community health and human services programs?
Yeah, I think it's still very likely that stuff will get funded going forward. The back pay thing is a question for the day. I don't know if folks are going to get back pay, if those communities are going to be back paid, or those organizations will be back paid. And I know it's terribly confusing and it's frustrating. I think SNAP in particular, USDA put out a memo in the spring when we were looking at the March shutdown, where they said, yeah, we can use that $5 billion emergency fund to pay for SNAP. And then that memo no longer exists on the website, and they came out a couple weeks ago and they said, no, we actually can't use that tranche of funds to backfill for SNAP. So I get it. You all under terrible pressure right now as local leaders, especially with the county. You have so many health and human services needs, and we just don't know how much of that money will be backfilled. But I think going forward, at the end of the day, also, there are sort of forces in tension in the White House between like the Office of Management and Budget and the more like political people in the White House who want to be more populist and take care of folks like the 4.5 million Floridians who rely on the ACA subsidies that might expire at the end of the year. And so it's just sort of talking to those more political folks and winning the day over the more, frankly, the more fiscal conservatives.
Thank you. Done.
Commissioner Cummings.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good afternoon, everyone. It's great to see you all, and I certainly appreciate the report, the analysis that you all have prepared for us, and you've done it year after year. Mr. Pittman and Nick and you guys, and we appreciate all of your hard work. Of course, I'm interested in all the priorities that we have on the state level, on the federal level, but more specifically on those that relate to human services, human resources. And I see specifically, again, one of our priorities deals with affordable rental housing units and looking at more flexibility with the use of our SHIP funds. And I'm glad that that's there, that we're working on that. But what is your opinion about the likelihood of any flexibility being provided with the use of our SHIP funds so that we can, in fact, have a positive impact on affordable housing units in Leon County?
So affordable housing has been a huge priority of the legislature in recent years, and we hope that momentum will continue. This has been a issue that has been proposed in past years, even championed by FAC, as well as various local governments throughout the state. We want to continue those efforts. Whether or not there's success, I don't know, but it's a practical solution to put another tool in the toolbox, as we like to say, in terms of addressing the affordable housing needs throughout the state.
And just to follow up, this is really just not a Leon County issue, but you look at Florida Association of Counties, it's a big issue,
Yes.
Throughout the state and other counties. So I appreciate you all maintaining that priority and all the hard work that you will do so that we can have some more flexibility so that we can move the needle in that particular area.
And Commissioner,
Yes.
one of the things that we can do is we can fill you in as that process grows,
Awesome.
as the conversation's starting to happen. I mean, we try to start early talking with staff that are talking to the leaders, whether it's dealing with SHIP or SAIL or any of these Live Local, any of these other initiatives that are trying to get to the same result. I know the speaker it's a big issue for him. It hasn't been one that he talks about a lot, but we've had conversations about, the impact he wants to have. Because it's a problem that everybody is understanding. I mean, you go to places like West Palm Beach, downtown West Palm, you almost can't afford with a job to live anywhere. And that's happening all over the state. So these moving targets, the definitions of affordable and workable, all that's changing in real time while they're over there trying to have an impact on it. So I think as it
Is that your time?
Excuse me.
Movable chair.
Excuse me. But as there are local government people who are really, really concerned about it, I would say to you that the best place to be is let us take you over there to talk to the people who are struggling with it so that you can bring some local perspective to it.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for that explanation and for your hard work in that area. And then my other brief concern or kiddo is with federal legislation decriminalizing marijuana. I know we have had that on the agenda several times. And of course, recognizing, locally in the state of Florida that we have diversion programs and other programs, especially here in Leon County, that has decriminalized marijuana. We have it in Florida from a medicinal standpoint, and I think it's just ironic that on the federal level, we don't have that flexibility. So I appreciate that being established consistently each year as a priority on the federal level. Having been an attorney that has represented clients with minute amounts of marijuana, it continues to be an issue. But my question is, do you all see any movement in that direction on the federal level, or is that just really not that much of a concern? And I appreciate the fact that on the local level, it has been addressed.
Yeah, Commissioner Cummings, I think there's opportunity there for sure. And like I said earlier, we enjoy a really, really good relationship with Senator Paul. He's been a leader on these sorts of issues. And so we should go talk to him about this. Like I said, his general counsel and senior policy advisor is a member of our lobbying team. So we have very good relationships there. And this administration, during the first Trump administration, they really did make a push for criminal justice reform, and some issues around legalization. They sort of stayed away from it for political reasons. But I think now in the second term, there is another opportunity to try to advance that. So I'd love to explore that with you.
Thank you for that explanation, and we certainly appreciate any work that you can give us, advocacy in that direction to minimize the effects on the federal level of marijuana. That's all I have. I'm brief, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Cummings. Commissioner Maddox?
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, just as a point of amplification on the marijuana,
Sure.
if I may, in line with Commissioner Cummings.
Can you be brief, Commissioner Proctor, please?
Yes, sir. Marijuana federal laws have been so racist. The sentencing has been so lopsided that it's not merely the adjudication of guilt. And then marijuana has been more recently interpreted as something medicinal. And but there has not been a correlating movement to free folk who have been adjudicated and locked up. And though the harshness against marijuana ain't the same, and the penalties, and in some jurisdictions here in Florida, it's like a speeding ticket or a parking citation. In other areas, you can go to jail and be treated like a real bad guy, 1980s some style. And it's that equitable issue that affects the people of District 1, my district, and it pisses us off because there's nothing in federal law right now as lopsidedly racist as the impact of federal drug laws against black communities. So representing District 1, it's my district, it's the impact of what hurts us. And I concur wholeheartedly with Commissioner Cummings.
Thank you, Commissioner Proctor. Commissioner Maddox?
Mr. Chair, I actually didn't have, I don't think I hit it, but thank you. Great thing about going almost last is you guys mentioned everything. I'm just gonna agree with everything that my commissioners have said. In particular, my priorities, of course, are affordable housing. Given my background and things that I work in, the most you can do to try to maximize the dollars that are put towards affordable housing would be a good thing for our community and statewide. So I don't think that's something that we're just looking at. I think everybody's looking at it. It's been mentioned before. The marijuana thing, of course, as Commissioner Cummings has mentioned, trying to get some parity there with the federal government, flexibility in that as well. Home rule. when it comes down to it, I think it all revolves around home rule, the term limits, the property taxes. Everything that the state is attempting to do to local government affects home rule. I think the respect for it is eroding by the years. Mr. Pittman said when he was speaking, and his point, what you see is that you see you see things that were ideas 3 or 4 years ago now become legislation that's being proposed. And I think that's because inch by inch, the state has less respect for what we do and the people that we represent, and if we know or hear their voice. I can't speak for other counties, but I can say here in Leon County that this board, in particular, are very in tune with our constituents and hear their voice. And so work hand in hand with FAC, try to establish some respect for home rule again, because I just don't think the state has it as much as they used to. There are some things that make sense, but then there's some things that don't. And so I would ask for emphasis, no question, on the things that I mentioned, in particular, affordable housing, the parity at the federal level with the marijuana issues, and to try to reestablish a respect for home rule and the respect for us as county commissioners, and understanding that we do listen to our constituents and know our constituents, and we don't waste. We don't waste, particularly here in Leon County. We don't waste money. We maximize our revenues that we get to create the best services we possibly can for our residents here in Leon County. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Vice Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I will keep my remarks very brief. First off, I want to thank Nikki and Ken. I appreciate the work in this agenda item. I feel like it was very straightforward. Commissioners, I also want to say it's great having some new faces and some familiar faces working together on our state and federal priorities. I like how the dialogue that I've seen thus far has been kind of guiding our board into how can we be successful into getting wins from the state. I think that's the right approach. I did have a point here. I think it was stated by Mr. Batista, but Representative Schoaf is the chair of the Transportation and Economic Development Budget Subcommittee. I think there's a huge opportunity there to continue to push for, coincidentally, projects in southern Leon County in the areas that, Commissioner Proctor, we represent, and our at-large commissioners, just for having the overlap. That is the portion of Leon County that he represents. And so if there's a sentiment amongst leadership to funding projects in those portions of Leon County, I think that we should be aggressive in seeking those funds while Representative Schoaf is in that leadership position. Additionally, I want to talk about what's important to our office, and that's infrastructure across the board. District 2, Southern and Southwest Leon County, it's no secret I've been very vocal in regards to advocating for safe and equitable infrastructure, whether it's road projects, turning lane projects, street lights, turning lanes, safety around our school zones. I'm a big advocate for supporting our rural communities, and any dollar that we can go get to support those parts of our community, you're going to get my support on. Mr. Chair, that's all I have until we get into the board and their posture for motions. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, commissioners, for your brevity there. I just have one quick thing, and it really deals with the property tax issue. Ken, you mentioned, you guys laid out the sort of implications of those various proposals, $85 million loss down to $21 million loss with a 25% exemption. I would assume this is going to be the case moving forward, but I'd like to see real world impacts. What does $85 million of lost general revenue or tax proposal revenue look like in the world, right? I think the mayor did a good job the other day. Somewhere he was, where was that? I don't know. Legislative delegation meeting, yeah, and he's like, look, this will wipe out Parks and Recreation. I think we need to know that. I think we need to be able to articulate that. If we look at the property tax proposal and it says we're going to harbor or protect school funding and law enforcement funding, okay, so if if an average homeowner's property tax is $3,000, does that mean that these other proposals holding those two things, without harm, means you're going to save $1,000, a third? Like, what percentage of ad valorem is not law enforcement or school related? You know what I'm saying? Like, I think people need to know that, because I think some people are under the impression that their property tax is going to go away. They're not going to get a bill. Well, you're still going to get a bill for schools and for law enforcement. You're just not going to get the bill for sidewalks, parks, planning, and all those things. And I think that we really need to articulate well as elected officials. We have an obligation to articulate to people what that looks like. What does it look like? Okay, does that mean we don't have animal control? Libraries are $8 million a year, so libraries are closed now. Libraries are gone. We don't have a planning department. Planning is fee-based. We don't have anybody. We close J. Lewis Hall, Woodville Park. The gates are closed. It's not open anymore. We close, the new Northeast Park doesn't open. The, Chairs Park closed. What does that really look like in people's lives? I think we got to get that information and articulate that, because you already see the reaction to the mayor's comments yesterday in the public saying, oh, it's sensationalism. I don't think it's really sensationalism. I mean, you're really talking about wiping out entire departments that the community depends on. And so I think that we need to get that. Like, I can take this information to the public and go, hey, no ad valorem tax means $85 million. What does $85 million loss look like in Leon County with what's our budget, $400 million? A quarter of our budget wiped out? How many people are unemployed with that number? How many people are unemployed with $21 million loss? Like, I would assume that information is going to come back to us as you guys navigate that process. And obviously, I anticipate a lot of pushback from counties and cities across the state, both Republican and Democrat, in a bipartisan way about the truly catastrophic nature of some of these proposals. I anticipate you guys, Sean and Brian especially, are going to be heavily engaged in that. And I would say, find out that information from Ken and the people of the city and whoever, and take that to legislators too, and go, hey, you realize this means they're going to close the parks in Palm Harbor. They're going to close the parks in Broward County. Like, this is really reality, okay, of what these proposals present. So that's all I got. That's all I want to say is just, please put us in a posture to articulate really honestly to the community and the public what that looks like. Yes, sir.
Thank you. When you were speaking, you brought something to mind. I think I remember when this conversation first started, maybe sometime last year, the conversation was around, and Brian, and Sean, you can nod your head if I'm right. It was about seeing where ad valorem revenues was paying for things that should be fee-based. You remember that? Kind of like where
You're thinking the early meetings of the House Select Committee on Property Taxes? They did an analysis of cities and counties and their reliance on ad valorem.
Yes.
Whose budget was more reliant on property taxes,
Right.
Whose was less. And just from an objective, fact-based standpoint, Leon County was in the top 10 most reliant on property taxes.
Right.
Again, that's fact-based. You want to interpret that as good or bad.
Mm-hmm.
That's because we don't rely on a lot of the fees that other jurisdictions do.
Yeah.
And that was the basis for the board's approval of the alternative revenue solutions that we'll bring back to you. As part
So
of
I said that to say, Mr. Chair, if I can, as we go down this road, sometimes, and I go back to Attorney Pittman's point, the inevitable is coming. I think at some point we got to think through, okay, if we're going to lose these revenues, what are the alternative revenue sources that we're not tapping or maxing out that could come back and make up for some of the revenue that's lost? No citizen wants to hear that. Let's just be clear about that. But if we're dropping our ad valorem by $85 million, that means that's $85 million that's going to be less coming out of our constituents' pockets, right? Let's say we've had a conversation about, I think it was solid waste. It's some fee that we're down $100 on. How do we maximize those fees to make sure that now, since we can't rely on ad valorem taxes anymore, that we can go to those more fee-based to make sure our enterprise funds are paying for themselves? Because that's what this does. If we have to, we're going to have to get to a place where our enterprise funds, they cannot be subsidized. We're going to have to get to a point where if we go down this road, that they're going to have to take care of themselves. And so I would like to know, what fees are we not, charging currently?
Yeah.
Where are we as far as the fees that we are charging? How far are we behind on those fees? And if this should happen, what does that mean for us long-term to try to make sure that we can keep the quality of life what it is in Leon County?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, just highly summarized version of this is that I hate to say that it's worse than it sounds in terms of the property tax proposals that are out there. And they're a moving target, as the commission knows. They're sort of all over the place from the most aggressive to the least aggressive. Dealing with our enterprise funds and our fees would help us address sort of the least aggressive scenarios and really not the most aggressive scenarios. Commissioner Maddox talked about home rule. There's an old saying in home rule that there is no fiscal home rule. What that means is we have very limited revenue sources, and so of those very limited revenue sources can only carry so much. You know what I mean? So you could only make those individual fees so high to pay for those discrete functions. Again, the good news is, commissioners, you've given us the guidance to bring a study back to you early in the budget process on alternative revenues, again, to do what we can do and to reduce our reliance on property tax revenues and to try to stay a step ahead. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Can I just add one thing to that? This is a scenario-based, sort of hypothetical, okay? And I don't know if Amanda's here from Parks and Rec, but does anybody know how much we charge a Little League ball player to play Little League at Chairs, Little League? Do we know? Like off the top of your head?
The county charges through the league itself, not the individuals. It's
How much does
Not
individuals
much.
pay the league? $50, $30, $80?
I don't think we have that information. We can get it to you.
Meridian Park, I can tell you, for example, is my kid pays $85 to play a season at Meridian Park.
Yeah.
Hypothetically, we get into a situation where that becomes $500. That's the reality of what, maybe it's $200, I'm just putting a number out there, but it's going to be significantly more, right, if it's a fee-based situation. So that's all I got to say about that. Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
But can I just clarify?
Sure.
Mr. County Administrator, we do have a consultant that's looking at alternative revenue sources, correct? Okay, awesome.
Okay. Commissioners, we got to do option number 1 and number 2. We're going to bifurcate those. Option number 1, there's 8 different options. Commissioner Caban, we'll start with I've labeled them 1 through 8 in our packet, which with the first one being the top property tax one. And so we'll start with that one. Number 1, property tax reform. Commissioner Caban, you're yeah.
No, option 1 captures all 8.
Yeah. We're going to separate those.
Okay.
Yep, and we're going to try and move through them quickly, commissioners, if we can. So like property tax reform, and the second one would be promotion of affordable rental housing development. Third one, Florida Association of Counties issues, and so on and so forth. Because we've got number 26, or number 2 is Commissioner O'Keefe's, individual item, and any others that may have individual items. Okay, Commissioner Caban.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to vote against this item, so if another commissioner wants to go ahead and make the motion, I'm sure I'll be the only no vote.
Mr. Chair, you looking for a motion on all of them, or are you taking one by one?
We're going to take them individually.
Okay, well, I'll make the motion for option number 1.
All right, we have a motion for item number 1 in option 1. Is there a second for that?
Second.
Second from Commissioner Proctor. Okay, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Briefly, please.
Yeah, I'll be very brief. Commissioners, the reason I'm voting against this is because I think our approach here is wrong. If you see what's going on clearly in the state, you got the Senate and the House and the governor's office, all 3 saying that they want property tax reform. It's my belief the train has left the station. And instead of just saying, hey, we oppose all of it, I think we should try to position ourselves to have a seat at the table to provide feedback of what works for local government and what doesn't work for local government. Because in my opinion, if we sit here and say we're going to oppose property tax reform, when you have the governor, the Senate, and the House, all 3 saying they want property tax reform, I'm willing to bet it's going to happen. And so I think instead of trying to, swim upstream and fight it, I think we should take a realistic approach and say, this is probably going to happen. Let's swim with the flow of water, but provide insight of how it's the least where it's a traumatic event or doomsday scenario for local government. That's my approach. I recognize I may be, a sole opinion here, but listen, the governor's office, the state, and the House are all saying property tax reform is coming. They provided 8 options. I think we should take the position where it's like, hey, let's have staff work through this and say, this is our position. I get you guys want property tax reform. This is how it provides, you guys get a win and we don't take a huge detrimental blow to local government. Mr. Chair, thank you for the ability to say my piece on that. And I recognize that my position may be a little different than some of our colleagues here. So, thank you, Mr.
No worries. Commissioner Maddox, you're in the queue.
Thank you. I appreciate your thoughts, Commissioner Caban, and this is a conversation we've had a few times at Florida Association of Counties, whereby we've been issue after issue after issue, and the question is, do we stand strong against these issues, or do we try to negotiate with the state? I think there are issues that you can negotiate on, but then there are issues that are core to who we are as local government. And because of that, particularly on the property tax piece, I think that's almost a non-negotiable. I think you stand strong against that, and if it passes, we have to come to the table. I think they will take some input from us. But I don't. Maybe more conservative counties across the state may be willing to look at a different alternative. But as I understand it, and Commissioner Minor, you probably know better than me, I think every county and state is in some way or form shape or form against property tax reform in the way that the state's trying to do it. So I appreciate where you're coming from on it. I almost think we stand strong as counties, 67 strong, with FAC, and fight this. And if it does pass, then I think we sit at the table as good partners, and we try to figure out how do we get this done in a way that accomplishes what the state is trying to accomplish, but does not hurt counties to the point that it takes away what our citizens expect from us and lower the quality of service that we give to our residents. And so, when you first started speaking, I thought about it for a second. I really did, because I'm always the one that's trying to come to the table and figure out, well, I have my way, you have your way. How do we meet in the middle? But then there's some things that you just got to stand on. And I think this is one of those home rule things that as a county, we need to stand on. And if we lose, we lose. We come to the table, we try to figure something out. But I think we got to stand on this one. This is my personal opinion. Thank you.
Thank you. I got Commissioner Minor, O'Keefe, and Cummings.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Florida Association of Counties has been working on this for months, and it's the approach that they're taking is very much what Chairman Welch has discussed, which is helping to communicate the impact of what some of the legislators are proposing. There's been a lot of discussion within the legislature about this. A lot of it is, a lot of members on the select committee at the legislature are freshmen, very new legislators. And so helping to increase their understanding of ad valorem revenue and how it's used for essential services, I think, is a big part of this. This policy item, as I see it, is not simply a flat, we reject everything that's on here. I think inherent to this policy item and the agenda item is we need to explain what the impact of these cuts would be to our local government. FAC is doing that statewide with legislative members all throughout the counties. Their commissioners are reaching out to their members on this. I think to oppose this policy item really sends a mixed message. Instead of fighting for what we believe are essential services in a very well-run county government, I think it sends the wrong message. I think Commissioner Maddox is right in saying that we need to stand by this. This county, I think, does an incredibly good job of maximizing taxpayer dollars and the whole host of services we provide. I think we need to be very clear in explaining what that is to our legislative delegation, working with our lobbyists to reach out to the members, having FAC do the same, and be very clear about what their proposals would do for local government. and more importantly, what these proposals would do for the people who live in our Florida communities. So I'm going to support the motion. I'm going to support the policy idea because I think it's an important part of what we do. And inherent to it is explaining to legislators what the impacts of these cuts would be. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Commissioner O'Keefe, then Commissioner Cummings.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I echo the sentiments of my colleagues, Commissioner Maddox, Commissioner Minor, and probably the commissioners that follow me. The whole point of local home rule property taxes is that each county is different. There are counties that voters decide to elect people who have lower property taxes and less services, and other counties elect people who want more robust services and are willing to pay that. This overrules that. I think that, I direct this chair to the right answer to people. By opposing this, we're not at the table. We have some of the best representatives here, and as does FAC, and we are still at the table. We oppose this, but we are at the table explaining the reasons, trying to minimize the harm while opposing it. And so by opposing it, we stand with all of the counties, I believe, universally at FAC, including counties with different political philosophies. And I think that's why it's important to stick with it and not, I don't agree with, we're not at the table if we oppose it.
Thank you, Commissioner O'Keefe. Commissioner Cummings.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I agree with Commissioner Maddox and with all the commissioners that have spoken on this. I think that opposing the reform to eliminate property taxes is what we're voting on. We're opposing that, but at the same time, we have tried to give some direction to our representatives to have some concrete, specific information, specific numbers on impact that this would have locally in our county. And so I think we accept the report, but even their recommended action was to oppose the reform. And so I agree with Commissioner O'Keefe. We're at the table because you all are representing us at the table. And I think you've heard our sentiment today about the adverse impacts that this will have in all segments of our county. And we have engaged a consultant to look at some alternative ways to generate revenue. But in the meantime, I think we have information that can be gathered to show specific impact. We talked about parks, libraries, but there are some specific human services that will be adversely impacted. So I think if we gather all of that together as part of our opposition to the elimination of property taxes, that we'll be in a better position, we'll be in a strong position, and clearly we will be at the table with that information.
Thank you, Commissioner Cummings. I'll just circle back and say I appreciate what the Vice Chair is trying to do, the whole catch more flies with honey kind of approach. And I get that. And I think that we have the ability to affect our property taxes every time we vote on a budget, right? And so, and maybe that's where this ends up, but I just think it's very important that we get to real world examples of the impacts of this stuff. And you want to talk about a lobbying effort. I mean, every county, I would assume, has a lobbying team. Every city has a lobbying team. You're talking about hundreds of entities are going to be in that capital trying to communicate, as Commissioner Minor said, with FAC and the League of Cities about the real world impacts. I mean, I think we all agree we want to provide the most efficient, cost-effective government we can possibly provide, but we also have obligations to provide essential services that are very important, and I don't think people necessarily understand the impact of some of these proposals, and I think it's important that as soon as we can get those in a way that we can communicate them. All right, commissioners, we're going to, like I said, go through these individually. So on the first issue, property tax reform, all those who support that legislative priority signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Okay, now we're on number 2. This is promotion of affordable rental housing development. Anybody want to move that one?
Moved it.
Moved Commissioner O'Keefe, seconded by Commissioner Maddox. Any discussion? All those in favor of promotion of affordable rental housing as a legislative priority signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed. Passes unanimously. Number 3 are FAC issues. FAC issues are a multitude of issues. Is there any? So moved on the FAC issues, seconded by Commissioner O'Keefe. Any discussion on those issues? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye, passed unanimously. Number 4, protection of the state workforce. So moved, seconded by Commissioner Maddox, moved by Commissioner Minor. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye, passed unanimously. Number 5, Emancipation Day, moved by Commissioner Cummings, seconded by Commissioner O'Keefe. Seeing no discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Amtrak passenger rail restoration, Commissioner Minor, Commissioner O'Keefe is the second. Seeing no discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye, passed unanimously. Public records exemption for election workers. I think this probably runs in line with Supervisor Early's earlier request. Yep, moved, seconded, okay. Moved by Commissioner O'Keefe, seconded by Commissioner Minor. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye, passed unanimously. And then lastly, on the state issues promoting resident ownership of manufactured mobile home communities, moved by Commissioner O'Keefe, seconded by Commissioner Caban, Vice Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm also going to vote against this one. I don't think promoting ownership of depreciating assets is a good stance for us to have with our citizens. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, any other discussion? Commissioner O'Keefe.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to weigh in and say the same thing.
Great.
Hold on one second. Commissioner O'Keefe's got the table. Commissioner Proctor.
Thank you. I would just clarify that this item is not universally suggesting people go buy and own mobile homes. This item is specific to when there's an existing mobile home park and people rent their lots, and a big corporation comes in to buy out the mobile home park, double and triple the lot rent on those people who live in existing mobile homes and find them unable to have a place of housing, that they get first right of refusal as a group to buy the existing mobile home park and choose, which is a lift in itself, but so that they may try to maintain as an owner association that exists rather than being bought out by investment firms that will triple the rent. That is what this advocates for, unique to the situation of companies buying existing mobile home parks and jacking up rent out from under the mobile home owners. It does not promote going and buying new mobile homes.
Commissioner Proctor?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would suggest that we rephrase this from promoting, what's that word? Resident ownership of, and then put promoting the protection of manufactured mobile home communities. Because this, our head note tells us that we're promoting resident ownership of manufactured.
I think that can be done.
May I suggest, I got it right here. Preserving mobile home park residents' opportunity to purchase the park. Something like that.
First
I
right
like
of
the Tony
refusal.
Proctor's, I think, better.
First right of refusal that park residents be given
Mr. Chairman,
a survey as
on,
to
I
whether
got
they
Maddox.
desire to become the first owners.
Okay, so I think you guys can articulate that, maybe work with them. Commissioner Maddox and then Commissioner Caban.
I wanted to hear from our lobbying team. Is what Commissioner O'Keefe said your understanding of what this is attempting to do?
Yeah, I mean, you guys are, I think you're, thank you, Commissioner Maddox. As I'm understanding it now, is you guys are framing the issue, and so I think I've got a handle on the item as it's being positioned now to support inserting a statutory right of first refusal to mobile home tenants.
Given Commissioner O'Keefe's explanation and the understanding of our lobbying team of what it is, I don't think it's a bad idea. I think those folks, you see it time and time again, somebody go buy that land. Story a few years ago, Savannah is on Gaines Street, went there all the time. People who know me knows it was my spot. When the law school was being built across the street, the rent from somebody else bought the property, rent from $2,500 to $5,000 overnight, and they had to let it go. I think what Commissioner O'Keefe is talking about, and what this legislation does, or our attempt to do, is keep that from happening with folks and give them the opportunity to buy it instead of sitting in a position where they're being raised, their rent's been raised to something that they can't pay, and they have to move. So I can support the motion on the floor. Thank you.
Is that like rent control?
No, Commissioner Caban's first, Commissioner Proctor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As oftentimes, Commissioner O'Keefe, I tend to appreciate the spirit of what we're trying to do, but I disagree with the technicalities. Our office we've been fierce advocates for mobile homes and manufactured homes, and I think we've seen that when we talked about the storm readiness, and I appreciate staff's efforts in regard to how we've adjusted some priorities to mobile homes and manufactured homes. My issue here is now we're getting in the weeds between landlord-tenant relationships, and this would be something that would be negotiated in a lease, right? If you lease a property, you want a first right of refusal, that's something that a tenant would, negotiate as part of their lease. And it's my opinion, which I'm going to vote against it, that if we should not be promoting our residents to purchase a depreciating asset. That's just kind of firmly what I believe in, right? We want to support programs to help more affordable housing for gap financing to buy single-family homes, all for that. But mobile homes depreciate in value. They're susceptible to being damaged in storms. And if someone puts their life savings in their mobile home and it gets wrecked in a storm, well, now they have a depreciating asset. So I'm just, philosophically don't believe that it helps empower folks in our community. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir. Commissioner Proctor, quickly, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Is this an asset that's insurable? I mean, is it even insurable? And to the extent that it's not, it really is a bad proposition. But the action component merely states the notice of first right of refusal requirements for the sale of manufactured parks. So looking at the action ask, it doesn't do what you're saying, Commissioner. It's simply giving the owners the opportunity to weigh in with the offer or bid. So, but I will accept your point. It's been consistent with my thoughts over the years.
All right, Commissioner Cummings?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We, commissioners, we have discussed this before in depth here on the dais. And we've talked about the rights of citizens in mobile home parks. And we had a situation right here in Leon County a couple of years ago where new ownership took over the park. Rents were triple or double. Those individuals had to find another place to live. I don't believe this particular priority encourages anyone to purchase a mobile home. Most of the individuals in mobile home parks are renters, and they are renters because they cannot afford home ownership. They can't afford home ownership. And when we discussed this here on the dais before, we were talking about protecting the livelihood of individuals who couldn't afford home ownership. So I don't see anywhere that this priority encourages anybody to purchase a mobile home. They do depreciate in value. We know that. So we're not encouraging the purchase of a mobile home, but I think that this is just a protective measure because we have had real life experiences where people were displaced because new ownership came in with no concern about the residents in that mobile home park at all. So I appreciate the sentiment from Commissioner O'Keefe, and I believe he's the individual that raised it here on the dais before. So I will be supporting this particular priority. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Cummings. All right, Commissioners, seeing no further discussion, all those in favor of state legislative priority number 8, signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? Passes 6-1 with Commissioner Caban in opposition. Commissioners, is there any concern about the 5 federal issues that you want to talk about? We'll just take them. If not, then we'll just vote on all 5 of those. Everybody cool with that? All those in favor of the 5 federal legislative priorities? Second. Move from Commissioner O'Keefe, second. Commissioner Maddox. All in favor? Aye. Passes unanimously. Now we're on option number 2. You guys following along with us? Okay.
Chairman?
Yes, sir.
I believe we also need to vote on the appropriations piece of our agenda item, unless you want to include that in option 2.
Okay, let's go ahead and do that if it's not. I thought it was just federal and state legislative priorities, but It got the executive in there too,
So
so.
I'll move the state and federal appropriations.
All right, perfect. We've got a motion from Commissioner Minor, second from Commissioner Caban. All those, Mr. Proctor, go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, point of information, our supervisor of election gave us legislative priorities coming from the Florida Supervisors of Elections. Are we going to use this as an addendum?
Yes, sir. He spoke about it at the beginning, and it was one of our priorities.
We have already
Yes, sir, and we
adopted.
voted on it. Yep, it runs parallel with what we're doing.
Super.
All right, everybody in posture for Commissioner O'Keefe. This is option number 2, where we can introduce items. This is your thing. You're recognized. Go for it.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
In line with what I sent, and I'll expand once I make a motion, I move that we adopt 4 common sense, broadly supported gun reform policies at the state and federal legislative priority. These are universal background checks, closing loopholes that allow people to buy guns from unlicensed dealers without a background check, secure gun storage laws that prevent unallowed and unauthorized or unsafe people from acquiring guns from allowable gun owners, extreme risk protection order or red flag laws that allow a judge to temporarily restrict firearms for someone with presenting a high risk of harm to self or others, and requiring gun owners to report lost and stolen guns to law enforcement. That reduces underground illegal gun trafficking. That's my motion.
I second
right,
that,
we've got a
Mr. Chairman.
motion.
I guess that's an addendum to the motion on the
Yeah,
floor. Okay.
that's option number 2 down there. To Commissioner, what's it say? Providing additional direction on the county's state and federal priorities. All right, we've got a motion from Commissioner O'Keefe, second from Commissioner Proctor. Commissioner O'Keefe, back to you.
Thank you. Out of respect for time, these are supported by, I'm going to pass around a letter of support that came in at 1:02 p.m. to your emails from Moms Demand Action, the state and the local organization. And I'd just like to recognize our representatives, if you raise your hand, here in the audience. So they support these. They are broadly popular with significant majorities of polling show voters and gun owners support these. They're proven effective, and they don't impinge on the right of people to responsibly exercise their Second Amendment. This brief support letter, I will read fast. This is from Moms Demand Action, state and local. Dear Commissioners, I'm writing to express my strong support for the proposal to include common sense gun safety reforms in Leon County state and federal lobbying priorities. I commend your continued leadership in prioritizing the safety and well-being of our residents. We have a proud history of taking meaningful action to prevent gun violence, closing the gun show loophole in 2018, and advocating protecting our college campuses. I'm abbreviating for everybody else. Our commitment to public safety and responsible gun ownership. Following the tragic shooting at FSU, we heard from our community, students, parents, teachers, that they want us to do everything we can. We know we are preempted from making any ordinances, but what I heard is, now I'm totally off the letter, sorry, I'm trying to be quick. What they know we are preempted, but what I've been made clear is they want us to do everything we can. This includes advocating on their behalf. The 4 proposals listed in my letter to you and made as a motion are supported in this letter, and this is with appreciation, full support from Moms Demand Action, Students Demand Action, and Everytown for Gun Safety. I will leave it there, and if there's more questions, I'm happy to answer them, but for the sake of time, I'll leave it there.
Thank you, Commissioner O'Keefe. Is there any discussion? All right, I have discussion. I don't see anybody in the queue. I will not be supporting this, Commissioner O'Keefe. I don't think that this is how we should be conducting ourselves on the dais. As you mentioned, we are completely and utterly preempted from doing anything about this issue. I think we can all stand up here till we're blue in the face and say we support common sense gun safety laws, but we just heard our lobbying team tell us to, quote, try and find alignment on issues where we can find success. I think this issue, if we saddle them with this priority, is going to hamper their ability to be successful because we know exactly how this is going to be received across the street. I don't appreciate that issues like this that are divisive, broadly national political issues make it to our dais, just like the climate change issue that came to us a year ago that I voted against for the same reasons. We don't have any ability to affect any meaningful change in this arena. And the reason that we don't have any is because we take actions like this and then the state just preempts us. And so I don't think it's productive. I think we should focus on policy on this dais, not politics. I think that if individual commissioners want to give press conferences and make public statements that sort of speak to a political narrative, then they can do that all they want. I encourage all of us to do that. But I don't think we should leverage the voice of this board to make those kinds of statements. I think that it distracts from the reality, because what we're doing is we're just posturing. We're providing an empty gesture to the community to say that we support common sense gun reform. Well, I can say that right here into the microphone. I support common sense gun safety reform. Making it a legislative priority, I think, is counterproductive to our ability to actually receive appropriations, to actually get traction on the other issues that we find important. It's just antagonistic of a legislature and a Capitol that we know aren't going to receive this issue in any way, shape, or form. We're going to see no traction on this issue. So in that sense, I think it's utterly performative, and I will not be voting in support of it. Commissioner Maddox, followed by Commissioner Minor, followed by Commissioner Proctor.
This is a tough one. Commissioner Proctor, we were here. I was a young commissioner. One of my first few meetings when the state sent down those letters that said we could not have anything on the books concerning firearms. And we had to sit here and take 3 or 4 of our most common sense things that we could possibly put. I think one was like shooting a gun across the park. And Commissioner Proctor and I and a few others voted against it. It passed. But the penalty for not passing, you remember, Commissioner Proctor, was to be removed or fined as commissioners. Remember, Commissioner Daley made it plain how he felt about us coming close to not passing some of those things. I know it's a prescriptive story, but when I say that to say I agree with everything that you've asked us to do. I do. But I also agree with what our chair has said, that if this was a resolution, maybe, but to put this in the hand of our lobbying team to send them across the street for something that we absolutely know is going to get no traction, I'm not sure I can do that. So I'm a little bit, most times we sit up here, we try to act like we're decided. I'm a little bit undecided because I'm conflicted. I agree with what you're trying to do. I agree with the message that you're trying to send. I agree with what it means and the things that it fights for. But at the same time, the chair has made it, well, you said it so eloquently and strongly, I couldn't say it better myself, in that sometimes we do things and it's an attempt to show we support, but we know that it ain't gonna quite get done what we're trying to get done. And there's a lot of things we're asking this lobbying team to get done. Where do they prioritize this? Where do they put this on their plate? How hard do they fight for this? Do you think at the end of the legislative session when they come back and say we were successful? Absolutely not. We know what's across the street. So I am undecided, but I will say I agree with I agree with the spirit of what this is trying to do. But I've oftentimes said I've also tried to build my legacy as a commissioner around doing things that I think that are effective, that can move, and not necessarily doing things for the attention or the approval of a certain class of people. And so if there's another way for us to get this done, maybe a resolution, letter from the chair or something like that, I don't know. But I don't know that right now. I don't know that I want to task my lobbying team with doing that when we have them doing so many other things and trying to be effective in so many other ways. And it could work counterintuitive to what we're trying to get them to do. And so I'm going to continue to listen. But if my vote is against, understand, it's not an indication that I disagree. I think there's other ways we can get it done. As the commission, as the chair said, if you want to do a press conference, do a press conference all day. You want to chair a letter from yourself, or you want to walk over across the street and advocate yourself, that's fine. But this lobbying team has a focus, and there's a lot of things that they're fighting against and that are important. I think they can move the ball on. And so I babbled a little bit, Mr. Chair, but this is a hard one for me. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Commissioner Minor.
Chairman, I appreciate it. Couple questions for our county attorney. There's nothing in the state's preemption of local governments that prevents us from adding this to our legislative priorities. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. And to our lobbyists, earlier you mentioned that when you go meet with legislators, a key part of your work is aligning yourself with them and speaking their language. So is it fair to say that if this were to be adopted as one of our legislative priorities, you wouldn't go into a member's office leading with this if you didn't think it was something they might find resonating? Is that correct? In other words, as lobbyists, you don't go in there looking for points of conflict with policy.
I wouldn't open with it.
What's that?
I wouldn't open with it across the street or with the Trump administration.
Yeah. Go ahead.
If I may.
Yeah.
I will say, stuff gets out in the press though too. We have a municipal client in the southern end of the state, and they had some issues with ICE, and that definitely impacted our work in Washington as well. And obviously that was not part of our meetings, but it got out in the press.
But as lobbyists, you have the ability to strategize on how and when or if to present a client's policy priorities to members, right? If you don't think something is going to gain traction with a particular member, you don't bring it up. And that's just a lobbyist strategy. Is that correct? Okay. So we could add this to our legislative priority list. And you all, because we entrust you to work the halls of the U.S. Capitol and the state Capitol, you all have the wherewithal to decide when and where or if to bring up this particular policy matter with members. But if the situation arose, God forbid there's another, I'm sorry guys, I'm just trying to have a conversation here. God forbid there's another shooting, a significant shooting in this state, or God forbid here in Leon County, it's the type of thing where public sentiment shifts in favor of these type of policies. If this were part of our legislative priority, you could take advantage of that public shift and possibly get some policy adopted, similar to what we had with previous shootings in Florida before. Correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems to be the approach that you all might take.
That seems reasonable, sure. If I may, I'll add, there have been several bills, this legislative session already filed, in the particular area. So I do agree with the general sentiment that this is an issue that this particular legislature, I feel, is unlikely to advance or pass something. But even absent this board or body's action or movement on this, there are bills that have been filed. There is a conversation, and whether you choose to adopt this as a priority or not, we can certainly keep any member of the commission apprised of how those bills are advancing or the conversation around them as well. And I believe that the county has the ability, and we can work with them to sort of adjust our talking points and priorities midstream during session if that makes sense as well.
Yeah, and if I could just add to it, Brian alluded to it, but there's significant lobby that is doing exactly what you've articulated. There's significant lobby that will show up to the Capitol, and every single year they're lobbying on behalf of those issues. So it's happening, and we could certainly keep you abreast of any pieces of legislation that meet you where you are with your issues. But we do what y'all ask us to do. You're right, Commissioner. I mean, when we're prioritizing our work, we try to start where it's going to have the best traction, and you try to grow from that traction. You wouldn't go to the person who absolutely would be against it and just come alone with my client's priority. I'd like to come with this chair or that person that they can relate to so that they're not alone and it's more impactful. So, but I think I could speak for Brian, and I think I could speak for us all to say that when you all give us your priorities, that's what we're going to go work on. We're not going to decide when we leave here, well, that's not going to work, so we're not going to do that. So I'm answering your question, but we follow your direction.
Right, and I think that's, we have a duty to try to carry out the agenda that you ask us to try to carry out, and we take it very seriously. And so, to the extent, you guys choose to put something on the priority list, we're going to try to see it done.
Yeah, but you are not going to bring up every policy priority that we have with every member that you meet with. I mean, you use your own judgment on what you think is going to work and create that alignment and that advocate for the things that are important to us based on that member's perspective. So given that, since adding this policy item to our legislative agenda is not prevented by Florida statutes, and we also inherent to having our lobbyists here, we're giving them the ability to make judgment calls on themselves, for themselves, when they bring things up on members, when they think it might make sense. I'm going to support this item. We get accusations. Chairman talked about how this is politics. There's politics played at this dais all the time. I don't see Commissioner O'Keefe's effort here to be primarily politics. There are policy proposals here within this letter of his that make sense. That people at the national level, people at the state level have talked about, that have a lot of public support in light of a lot of tragedies that have taken place here in Leon County and throughout the nation. So I'm going to support Commissioner O'Keefe's policy proposal here with those, after the discussion we had for lobbyists and understanding that it's not prevented by Florida statute. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir. Commissioner Proctor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Commissioners, I think a little different possibly on this issue. And I don't think that we legislate from our dais on the basis of our interpretation of the biases of members across the street. Sheet of paper indicates that at Florida State, there was a shooting. Florida State, and the occurrence of the shooting was in Leon County District 1. I simply can't, I'm not distant from that. It happened in District 1. Along with a number of other shootings, and probably most of the gun arrests and problems is in my district. So we have a high-powered lobbying team. Their hardest job, and we're not asking them inherently to dumb themselves down to the level and IQ of the Florida legislature, who presumes themselves that they are autocrats. They want to hear from, number one, the worst bias is that we're giving a team a charge coming from a blue county. That alone. But if we stop believing in this great team, skilled lobbyists, and we've hired them and let go others and brought on others because for a time such as this, we believe that they hold the magic, if you will, to access, and that they're not afraid to tantalize the brains of those who may not be concerned about gun safety. There is also the issue in the legislature about guns being on campus. It's been proposed in successive sessions. And I teach at a campus, been doing so since 1986. And it's disheartening that we can only brown nose our way, and we can't logically reason our way through the issues with 3 campuses here in our community, which we're the county commission. I can't see our first order is to determine who are we going to offend because we're concerned. And I think that in American politics now, we're in that moment where does one person like this or don't? And I refuse to ever legislate or to reduce my own self to the thought of reacting to legislatures or presidents, and everything revolves around them. I'm here, frankly, because the 1965 Voting Rights Act. And Congressman John Lewis, going across the in Selma, the Edmund Pettus Bridge, March 7th, 1965. And resulting from acts on that day when you wasn't supposed to, black soldiers were dying in Southeast Asia to bring about democracy, to end communism, fighting to establish democracy in Southeast Asia. Black soldiers dying in Southeast Asia had no correlation. It seems that black voters and citizens in Southeast United States could not vote. Dying for democracy in Southeast Asia, but did not have democracy, the experience of voting in the Southeast United States. That's what the 65 Voting Rights Act, and its tentacles pierce through the courts, which the NAACP filed for there to be representation in this community. And at the NAACP, or John Lewis and others said, well, we just don't want to piss off George Wallace. He's George Wallace. And they traversed a course of action against the worst, most evil, racist mofos that ever wore pants. But today I sit here only because they persevered against Lester Maddox, against Governor Faubus, who stood in Central High School in Little Rock with his arms folded like that. And for a governor to say, not over my living body will folk desegregate coming to these hallowed walls of public schools. I can't give up. It's too much further to go than to sit here and worry about whether or not we got the support of who's a Republican and all of that. And the people asking, can we stand up for reasonable gun thought and gun universal background checks? That's what they're asking for. And I don't know how many murders occurred this year. I don't know that boy that shot. It's just so commonsensical things that I'm not willing to bow down to, and to think of how crazy it was to think that we could get the right for black men to vote, and 50 years later the right for women to vote, and 50 years later for 18-year-olds to vote. Some things come with a continued and a persistent walk against fate, eternity, or whatever exists in that time. And that's what democracy is, the local government informing the state government. But if the state government, and this thing that I teach as a constitutional instructor of constitutional law, that the local government no longer counts, and that we have no system of state, local, state, and federal government, but it's just the state and the federal government obviously don't work no more because we have stepped into a pit where one person calls all the shots and the whole damn nation falls shut. So, Mr. Chairman, this ain't no effort to dissuade any of you in your thoughts at all, simply to bear witness and place in the public record that I'm here today resulting for people who had the persistence, go against the grain, to swim against the stream, and to chart a course that, but that's what faith is, the substance of things hoped for, the evidence not seen. And I want to stand on Hebrew 11:1 today to say that I'm supporting it because, that's what faith is, the substance of things hoped for, the evidence not seen. And I believe that we are righteous and we're in the right direction. And I don't know y'all, but you got good sense to ask that we calibrate our society with more gun efforts. It's important. And I call finally, Ms. Chairman, I thank you for letting me talk this long. In the face of the elimination of diversity, equity, and inclusion, silence is not our best and strongest response. Silence is just not. But if we defer to the legislature and their thoughts on equity, diversity, and all of that, people like me not going to be here much longer because it's going to grow like a cancer. Cummings ain't going to be here. Maddox going to go sit down and call some other roles. Ain't going to be here. Pittman not going to be here because he's going to offend the legislature just because he shows up when we know they don't believe in diversity. So what the hell is Sean here for? He's messing us up. So I don't view Mr. Pittman because he's been over there since Moses was a little boy. He's been over there, but I don't think they see him as black. So he gets, that bye. But the way they think and what they articulate as a policy is that they don't want to see him. But we have insisted that we want him on the team because he reflects and he represents taxpayers 35% of Leon County. That's why. And us owning that man to be a part of this team right here is indicative of our statement. And if we believe we just got to kiss the ring across the street, then take Sean, don't send him over there to mess us all up. It's just that serious. So, Pittman, no offense to you, you're strong enough, brother, and you way better than many. And we thank you for working there, but I understand the bias, since we're concerned about legislative bias that others may have about you. My final, Mr. Chairman, I want to tell y'all something. When I was Special Assistant to Governor Childs, on the night of the election, it looked like Lawton Childs was going to get whipped. And y'all need to know that county after county was reporting. And I mean, just county after Florida county. And Jeb Bush that night won 51 counties. And how in the world do you take 51 counties and lose? That's because faith is the substance of things hoped for. But 16 counties voted for Lawton Childs. And when Dade County came in and pushed him over the top, he won by 0.80%. And when I ran the second time, I won by 12 votes. 12 votes. And on the recount, which the law compelled, the next day, I received 3 more votes, one for the Father, one for the Son, one for the Holy Ghost. So I won by 15 votes. So I don't give up on incremental steps forward and continuing to believe. And I'm asking you not to, that we not fall into this new wave of American go along to get along, kissing on rings. We don't have a king. 7 million people showed up the other day, said we don't have a king. I am not stepping into that pit, that quicksand of thought. If these people don't want to do the job and we're putting something too complex, which cognitively transition into their emotional and psychological state of strength, that they can't carry the waters and the ask, and we need another team. But I believe that these people can do that. We're not that deep. This is not that hard, not complex. And we believe in them. That's why we brought new players to the table. I did. But if you can't represent us, tell us. We shouldn't have to sit here and tremble whether or not y'all gonna offend somebody. Hell, if y'all can't represent us, tell us that we're bringing too much of an agenda for you to handle. And everybody be honest. But I don't think that this little sheet of paper does that to you. And if it does, I think you should bow out and say, y'all too crazy, Leon County, plus you're blue. So those are my thoughts, Mr. Chairman. Thanking this commission. We're gonna be a kick-ass commission. We're not gonna be no nilly-willy, waffle along, get, with all of that. We gotta think straight and pray to this moment that clarity inside of democracy will re-emerge at some point sooner than later. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Cummings, then Commissioner O'Keefe, then Commissioner Maddox.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll be brief. You know, the last couple of years, I have stood alongside Curtis Taylor and Jerome Jones, who are with the Tallahassee Urban League, and we have advocated for gun safety and public safety. And one of the things that we advocate is do not leave loaded guns in unlocked cars. We also advocate for, if you have a loaded gun at home, secure it in a safe place. Lock it, put it in a safe so that children won't have access to it. Because I believe most of us, many of us, have been adversely affected by gun violence from relatives, from friends, acquaintances. So it's a major thing in our society, and of course, the recent tragedy over at Florida State that actually took lives is right here at home. And in many instances throughout the country and throughout the state of Florida, we see individuals having access to guns who might otherwise not have had access had background checks been done. Too often we see individuals who have suffered from mental illness having access to guns and having been involved in these shootings on college campuses and at shopping malls in different locations. And I love Mothers Against Gun Violence, Students Against Gun Violence. I like all of that advocacy because I think that it starts at home. We have to protect our homes and our families and take that advocacy out to the community as well. So I don't know, Mr. Chair, I would feel what is the word I'm looking for? A hypocrite, I believe. I would feel very hypocritical if I didn't support Commissioner O'Keefe's request in the human services area. I appreciate his sentiment for the preservation of society from this standpoint. And I just feel like I would be a big hypocrite standing with the Urban League and other community leaders, citizens in this community, urging us to be cognizant of gun safety. And with the proposals that are before us today, is very consistent with our advocacy for gun safety. So I will support it. I know we have very savvy individuals who are representing us. We love our lobbyists. Some are new. We appreciate Sean Pittman, who has been on our team for years, has done a great job. We appreciate you as well. But I believe, like Commissioner Minor indicated, you all are savvy. You are wise. You know how to, you've got experience in dealing with the legislators or not. And so I believe that you all can very well represent us on this particular issue if it passes as one of our priorities. And I don't believe it being a priority should be offensive to anyone, because we're talking about preserving human nature. We're talking about protecting my child and your child and our relatives and our family. So I'm not going to go on and on, Mr. Chair, but thank you, Commissioner O'Keefe, and I will be supporting
Thank you. Commissioner O'Keefe, followed by Commissioner Maddox.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, colleagues. I appreciate the robust discussion, and if we decide to support this or not support this, that's where we are. Since we started this discussion, I don't think this table has taken a breath. Breathe deep. It's going to be okay. We have, my point here is we have lobbyists to advocate on all kinds of policies that we just approved, and those are policy decisions. I bring this up as a policy decision. When we voted on hiring this firm, I asked if they have very good connections and bipartisan connections, but here at the state and the federal, very good connections with the current administration, the current party in control. But if we hire them for us and we vote for policies that aren't right in line with those administrations, are they still going to advocate for us? And the answer I got was they will work for us on what we vote on and do what they can. And that's why we hired them, and that's why they get paid well, because they are good at it. And that's why I voted for them. If there is a fear that by putting this on our legislative priority, that then the state will come back and preempt us from doing legislative priorities, and we don't do a priority because of that, then we are preempting ourselves from doing what we are allowed to do. We are preempting ourselves and not speaking up for our community. But I don't want to subjugate our voices that we've been elected to speak for our representatives, to do what we fear the administration doesn't like. Because if the idea is to get more funding, which is important, by only supporting and agreeing with what the current administration approves, we don't need a list and 80 pages. We can just come in and say, we vote to follow whatever the administration supports right now, and we don't challenge any of it. And so that's why I appreciate the support from my colleagues. And again, I'll leave it at, we're going to vote whether we support this legislative priority or not. And I do believe all of my colleagues, good faith, do believe in doing everything to improve the safety of our students and our families. So whether we differ on whether this is the appropriate way to go, and I think it is. It was said if there is another shooting. There is no if. There will be another shooting, and there'll be more shootings until things change. And that is why our community is asking for these. That is why I am asking for us to vote to direct our legislative representatives that we believe in this policy, and where they can, I'd like them to advocate for it. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner O'Keefe. Commissioner Maddox.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Commissioner Proctor, Commissioner, immediate past Chair Cummings, I appreciate the perspective. I do. I appreciate you giving me perspective. 3 years ago, tomorrow, October 29th, 2022, Demario Romero was shot going into a liquor store, coming out. When he didn't get a bottle, come out. Think he's gonna go make it home. He got two young girls at the house, and didn't make it. Bullet wasn't intended for him, just in the wrong place, wrong time. He's no longer with us. 40 years old, Sandra Horn misses her son. His daughters missed the opportunity to be raised by that young man. And when I was speaking earlier, I had a thought. And then I heard the perspective coming from my colleagues, and I had another thought. Thought back to what Attorney Pittman, he was almost a commissioner, y'all. Jane Sauls beat him out, but he was close. You never forget. Sean Pittman said that there were ideas that are now legislation that are at the legislature and working its way through that are eventually going to pass. What may not be popular to our legislators right now, I think I have a duty to continue to fight for, because I have 3 children at home that I will hope one day will be protected by the things that we're trying to do here today. And so I said I was undecided, but now I'm decided. I wouldn't just say that you carry this on the legislative agenda in a way that if you get an opportunity to speak about it in front of a legislator, you take that opportunity. Try to be effective on it. know you got to be strategic, but I asked for the proclamation to go to Ms. Horn for her son, for her advocacy on her son, and to ask you to not give your best effort in trying to get something done in a way that's what's being asked here for today. As Commissioner immediate past Cummings said, in my opinion, for me, would be hypocritical. And so I am going to support the motion on the floor because I believe that though I don't think it'll get any traction this year, I don't think it may not even get any traction next year. It may be 20 years before it gets traction. I could be dead and gone or definitely not here on this commission. I want the record to reflect that I supported us doing something or trying to do something. So, Mr. Chair, I'm going to support the motion on the floor and ask our team to do the best they can to try to get some movement on it. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Maddox. Any further discussion?
Mr.
All
Chairman,
right.
you should know that Mississippi mass shooting leaves 4 dead and 12 injured in Leland. I was on my phone just now.
Yeah. All right. Thank you for that, Commissioner Proctor. All right. Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor of Commissioner O'Keefe's addition to the state and I guess just state?
No, state and federal.
State and federal legislative priorities, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? No. Passes 5-2 with Commissioner Caban and Commissioner Welch in opposition. Is there anything else, Mr. Administrator? Oh, sorry.
Please.
Commissioner, are we gonna, we don't really have any commission time on this agenda, so go ahead if you have something.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Let me pass this out real quick. I have I guess this would be option 2 I'm going to propose as a state legislative priority.
Oh, I'm sorry. We're back on that side. There's the attorney.
Is there an extra one to pass down to you all?
The attorney might could loan hers. No, he's got some.
Okay. Commissioners, I mentioned earlier this year that I would be bringing up a discussion item for us to discuss relative to crime in our community directly related to our most vulnerable population, which is our children. And I guess there's no light way to say it than to just say that there are monsters out there. And sadly, there are monsters that live in our community. They reside in our neighborhoods. They could be next door to us. It could be folks you meet every single day. And so what I'm asking is just for an agenda item to come back. And basically, the Attorney General of Florida held a press conference, I believe it was sometime this summer. And in the press conference, he stated publicly that he intends to work with the legislation to sponsor or run a bill, or have a member of the House run a bill that would basically target convicted criminals with crimes specifically against children. The key word is convicted, not alleged, not you've been charged, convicted. And essentially with this, what I've passed amongst you is I had Allie pull some crimes against our children in our community just really within the last year. Some date back a little farther. But I mean, this stuff is horrificing. And the one that really has inspired this is Missy Mogul, who her stepfather was a convicted sex offender and allegedly murdered his stepdaughter after he was convicted and awaiting sentencing. And so it is of my opinion that if you are a convicted sexual predator, while you are awaiting sentencing, you should be in jail. You're convicted, you're guilty. And I appreciate the sentiment amongst our board of understanding that there are petty crimes out there, and I like some of our diversion programs at which we've really taken a stance on. but I think it's time that we send a message that crimes against our children in our community are not going to be tolerated, period. And so my ask is, I guess I'll make a motion, Mr. Chair, to just, I want to make a motion that if this bill comes before the House, that staff bring us back an agenda item for us to discuss whether or not it's something we want to add to our legislative priorities.
Second.
I understand the spirit behind what you're asking for, Commissioner Caban, but I think it's so important. Why do we have to wait to see if it actually becomes a bill? Why not go ahead and give?
So amended, Mr. Chair,
Thank
so
you.
amended.
The direction.
You okay with that, Mr.
Yes,
Parker?
yes,
All
sir.
right.
The direction that if it becomes a bill, that it will be a part of our.
So amended. I appreciate the vote of confidence.
Yeah, so I'll support the motion.
All right, Commissioner O'Keefe, you're in the queue.
Thank you. This is very important. I'm glad you brought this up. Thank you. We move pretty quick. My understanding of the current motion is agenda, go ahead, we're not waiting. Bring an agenda item back with information on this. So, no, go ahead and vote now.
Well, yeah, to add it to legislative priorities, if that bill is filed by the Attorney General or via the Attorney General's office through the legislature.
Can you?
He's basically saying preemptively, let's go ahead and.
If it's filed, I mean, that's the spirit of the motion now, if we're going to get behind it.
I was on board for getting an agenda item come right back because I do have, on a criminal justice item, I'd want to know, I'd want input from our state attorney, from our sheriff, about what the details or impacts would be, but that's not part of what we got right now. Can you, I see and I heard the impacts and the cause. Can you restate what your understanding of Missy's law would be when it comes in so we know? Because right now, we don't have that in front of us.
So from my understanding in the press conference I saw, and thank you for the question, thank you, Mr. Chair, for allowing to discuss. From the press conference that I watched online, essentially, if you are a convicted sex offender, and you are convicted, and you're awaiting sentencing, from my understanding, the spirit of the bill, which hasn't been written yet, but was discussed in the press conference, is you are, as a convicted sex offender, while you are awaiting sentencing, you have to be remanded in custody. And that's the difference, right? Right. What happened here was, and I actually believe this happened in your district. This guy, Daniel Spencer, was a convicted sex offender, was guilty. While he was waiting sentencing, he was allowed to go home while he was a convicted sex offender. And then during that process, he allegedly killed his stepdaughter. So I think when you're convicted, you're guilty. There's certain crimes that we shouldn't be playing around with, and I think this is one of them.
Thank you for the clarification. So I'll support the adding to it. Can I ask for a friendly amendment to ask for information to come back from staff with input on this from our diversion staff, the sheriff's office, the state attorney, and the public defender, just so we're aware between now and whenever it comes up, so that if by surprise, because this all makes sense, but sometimes in criminal justice reform and laws, you realize there's a weird trigger that makes things not effective. So can we do this, put it on the list, vote it now, but ask for information?
Cool. Yeah,
it doesn't even have to be agenda.
We're endorsing it now. I think it's fair to ask for staff to give us updates as it comes to fruition.
And if we get back, I just asked that if we get back something that I couldn't even expect that it'd be there, but something that makes it not make sense, we'll revisit it. But I don't think we will. I just want us to get the information following.
Great.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Chair stepped out, so I have the gavel. I see Commissioner Proctor, you're in the queue. You have the floor.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chairman, just one thing here, and looking at the background narrative in that blackened area of sentences, but a Leon County judge allowed him to be released. That word allowed him. I've studied this, and the question is why. And one of the things that exists is why was the judge kept in the dark about this background? Why didn't DCF convey their notes? why didn't the state have notes of which they would have objected when this was brought up? And I think that this case speaks to something different. Well, to that, it speaks to what it speaks to substantively, but an ancillary concern is that we have a judge down there blindfolded who did not have DCF's files running consistent with or concomitant with these files related to this particular man. So one of the things that we see the clerk of courts dealing with now is the information assembly, and what perhaps we as a county commission have been negligent and are doing is that we've got a state attorney on one computer program, we've got the court system doing something else. DCF has vital information that does not feed over into our system. The clerk is down there working with 3, 4 different kinds of, and reconciling information. And this speaks to the dysfunction that maybe we as a board need to look into on how to put all of these different entities that together, that information, so that the judge allowed him to be released, and the judge allowed him to be released, and in the court, you got all of the different entities, and nobody spoke up because she's the judge and is supposed to be informed. The parties who make the judge aware did not, but they were dysfunctionally disassembled because the computer system that they had. We need to update is what I'm trying to say. And it underscores what can happen when everybody ain't operating off the same page of music. Clarinets on one thing, the trombones on something else, and everybody on something different. That's why we need to bring this. And I speak to, just to tiptoe lightly, Mr. Chairman, very lightly, that this is one of the dynamics that the clerk, I believe, is trying to assemble information and to place it in timely manner and among other things, but that's also a factor of dynamic. I just want to lift that up and not throw the judge under the bus, and we not delve with the question why informational lapses did occur in technology.
Thank you. Thank you for those comments. Commissioner Proctor, I believe Commissioner Maddox has a comment on point.
Just real quick on point, if I can, Commissioner Minor. Yeah. Actually, I think we can go a little stronger, Mr. Vice Chair. It has not yet happened, so I was thinking maybe we also do a resolution asking a request, showing support and requesting that the legislature act on it. And if they do act, then we're also going to support it as a part of our agenda. But I think before it even gets there, I think it might be an idea to.
Well, I have the motion on the floor, so I'm willing to amend the motion to include a resolution where you can entertain the second.
Yes. Thank you.
Staff, you got that? I have next.
Mr. Chair, I pressed the wrong button.
Yeah, Commissioner Cummings, go ahead. Are you asking a question? Yes. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I didn't see your name in queue. Commissioner Minor, are you okay to go to Commissioner Cummings? Cool. Commissioner Cummings?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. I apologize, I was out of the room. I heard some of it. But I understand Mrs. Law is proposed legislation. It is proposed, and based on what I see here, you said if it's presented, we want an agenda item to come back.
So,
No.
while you were, I'm going to give, Mr. Chairman. Sure. You were out of the chamber, so the current motion on the floor is we are going to go ahead and preemptively endorse it. So basically.
Without seeing it, we're going to endorse it?
That was the dialogue amongst the board to ask to amend the motion. And on top of that, we want to ask for a resolution to saying that preemptively we want this bill to go, is that the right terminology?
Be filed.
Filed, correct.
Oh, I see. I don't know, I just think it's premature for a resolution or anything without seeing the legislation. I'd like to see the legislation before we do that. You know, that's just my, I don't want to blindly say, let's do a resolution or anything. Now, I think agenda item is appropriate if it's filed, if it's presented, but I don't want to be in the dark with supporting something.
Mr. Chairman, on point, I think I can address your point here.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So what I was going to bring up was, first of all, Vice Chair Caban, thank you for bringing this up. It's important policy, and I think it's needed, and I think you've identified something that is necessary. So thank you very much for bringing it up.
Appreciate the
If I can make a friendly amendment suggestion, and this would address Commissioner Cummings' point, we don't know the bill yet. It hasn't been drafted yet as far as we are aware. What I'd recommend is instead of basically having an agenda item or a legislative priority supporting Missy's law, instead what we do is we support the policy. So basically we say, we support legislation that if a convicted sex offender, while awaiting sentencing, that offender must be retained in custody. I think if we focus on the policy, that way whatever Missy's law becomes, because we with the legislature, we don't know what the law actually will be voted on, what the content of that bill would be. We can guess, and there's a chance that, exactly what we're thinking of will be in the final version of the bill. But if we actually attach the legislative priority to the policy itself, that addresses Commissioner Cummings' point, and it also gives us something very clear that we're all voting on that we can get behind and support. The policy might be inherent in Missy's law, and that might be the only thing in Missy's law, but we don't know that for sure yet because we haven't seen the bill.
Mr. Chair, if I may respond. So I liked where Commissioner Maddox was by taking it a step further and asking for a resolution for the bill to be filed, right? I think that's important to saying, hey, this is an important bill to us. I like the key where he's at, the point that he brought up there. I get what you're saying about the policy. However, I acknowledge the fact that this is a little philosophical, and I admit that, but this was a child. Missy was killed in Leon County, right? I want us to take a stance and say we want Missy's law and the policy. Does that make sense?
It does.
We're saying the same thing, but this was a young child that I believe I want her name to continue to live in legacy, and so I want this to be able to be a part of how we position our resolution. Now, I agree with...
Has it been drafted?
Well, Commissioner Cummings, that was the original motion to say an agenda item to come back.
Okay.
When the bill is filed.
Okay.
Right? So I guess what I'm hearing here, and Commissioner Maddox, I don't want to speak on your behalf, but I think fine-tuning what the board wants is this. Let's have a motion that asks for a resolution saying we want Missy's law along with this policy to be carried and filed, okay? Additionally, we want staff to bring back an agenda item when it is filed for us to discuss and review whether or not we are going to add it as a legislative priority. Does that make sense?
It does, Vice Chair Caban, but I mean, you say that we need to take a stand on this issue, and I agree with you 100%. I just want to be very clear what we're taking a position on. And by actually having the legislative priority that we're voting on today actually describe the policy, that tells us exactly... One second. That tells us exactly what we're voting on. In that legislative priority that's written up, we can refer to it as Missy's law as described in the press conference that you saw.
Correct.
But I think it's important for us to actually identify the policy itself that we're voting on,
Right.
that we're supporting, because that is the key thing that we're all behind.
May I clarify then?
What's that?
May I clarify?
Yeah, go ahead.
What I'm clarifying is a convicted sex offender, while they're waiting sentencing, must be remanded in custody. That is the policy.
Exactly, that's what I wrote
Perfect.
down.
We're saying the same
Articulate
thing.
that
I think we're on the same page.
I want to make sure that we are. So what we're going to be voting on, the motion that you have, basically says, let's support the legislative priority for that policy as you described. Convicted sex offender while awaiting sentencing is remanded in custody during that time. That's what your motion has, right?
Correct.
Now, it can be referred to as Missy's law in the press conference, but what we're voting on is the policy.
Correct.
Not the title of a bill called Missy's law, because I think that's where we could run astray.
The policy that is referred to in the press conference as Missy's law.
Okay.
Make sense?
It does. I just want us, we want to support a legislative priority. It's important for us to specify the policy that we're voting on, not just
I agree.
a bill that hasn't been filed yet called Missy's law.
I agree.
Okay.
Mr. County Administrator, do we got that on the record, what it is? We got the resolution saying?
We do.
Okay, cool.
We got it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Appreciate it.
Commissioner Cummings, you're still in the queue. Did you want to talk?
If we are amending the ask to say a resolution supporting the policy and articulate that policy, you could say the policy referred to as Mrs. Law.
Yes, ma'am.
Then I'm fine with that, Mr. Chair, but I'm
Mr. Chair,
just,
but on point though, I think Commissioner Minor makes a great point, and y'all had a back and forth there. And I think both things need to be added. Commissioner Minor, you said Missy's Law. Commissioner Minor said specific, what is the policy within it? So the motion is, Commissioner Caban, tell me if I'm wrong, a resolution supporting Missy's Law specific, asking legislature to act on Missy's Law, specifically the piece of it that reprimands or holds a convicted sex offender in custody during sentencing. That's the first part of it. The second part of it is if that legislation is filed with the specifics that we've asked for, that an agenda item come back where staff would give us information on that specific item and understanding what it says, and we can further our support of it, correct?
Except the language should say the policy supporting Mrs. Law.
Yes.
Correct.
That resolution.
The resolution.
Okay.
All right. Everybody satisfied with the motion? All right, we got a motion by Commissioner Caban, seconded by Commissioner Maddox for a resolution to the legislature. You guys follow along with that? All right. All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, show it passes unanimously. We're still on the, anything we want to add? Commissioner Quinn, you got anything else?
I do not. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, anybody else? No? Nothing, anything from you, Mr.
Excited about our
Administrator?
newly constituted team. Commissioners, as you know, during session, a lot of communications. Thank you for your guidance today.
Mr. Chair.
Team, yeah, you guys want to add anything? Go ahead.
Yeah, I would. First of all, thank you all for the discussion. It's very, very helpful to us to, not just to hear what you say, but to try to learn how you think on these issues and your expectations of us. Mr. Vice Chair, I do want to illuminate something that you said, because it's the only moment that we talked about these issues. And when you talk about infrastructure, I would ask you to continue with that line of thinking and that interest. You talk about pedestrian accidents and pedestrian deaths. All across this country, it's a huge issue. The data shows that 100 people a month are killed across the country because of pedestrian accidents. And guess where it's happening? It's happening in poor communities. And it's happening in poor communities because the infrastructure is not like it is in other communities. So to hear you bring that up as an issue, a specific issue that needs to be dealt with, Florida is the same as the rest of the country. Leon County is the same as the rest of the country. And we have to focus in on that particular issue and come up with ways that number one, we identify those issues in poor neighborhoods, and you can identify them by looking at the statistics, and there's a reason that is happening. And then number two, we've got to channel the resources so that all the communities look alike. So I just want to applaud you. I just want to applaud you in that interest, and if we can help you, let us know.
I appreciate that, Sean. It means a lot. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you, guys. Brian, go ahead.
Yeah, just thank you, Chair and Commission, for your faith, and we'll absolutely do our best to fulfill the asks of this board during the session.
All right, Nikki, Ken, Chase, everybody, Sam, thank you, guys. Good luck. Boy, howdy. Good luck.
Thank
We
you.
are adjourned.